All right, let's get started. Let me go ahead and get everything set up here. We're going to join John's space in just a moment. And there we go. It looks like we're on and we're good. Let me mute this mic, turn on that.
Oh, you didn't hear that at all? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And
Sounds okay.
the echo's gone now,
Not as
John.
good
So it looks
as
like you're good.
2 days ago,
Whatever,
though.
whatever you fixed, you fixed.
I don't know if that's because, yeah, it sounds a little like robotic. Andy, can you attest to that?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And the echo's gone now, John. So it looks like you're good. Whatever,
There we
whatever
go.
you fixed, you fixed. Oh, there's the echo. Now we can hear it. Yes, we can hear the echo now.
Oh, there we whoa.
Okay. And so the echo's still on.
There it is.
What
Yep.
is going?
On the PC, it let you
Yep, that
recently you
works.
can switch your input device. Maybe that's contributing to it.
Okay. All right. We're just going to do that.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm just cutting all of my desktop because it's going bonkers. So I don't know what's going on with it. Apologies, much apologies for the start of this. So today is Friday, March 7th, 2025, and we have a super special guest today. And Andy's here, and our special guest is Jonathan. Jonathan, how do you pronounce your last name?
Pachetic. It's Polish. Pachetic.
Shank.
Mhm.
I'm from New York and over in Williamsburg back in the day it was a total Polish neighborhood. Where are you from?
I was born in Chicago, which is a Polish neighborhood, but I'm from Michigan.
Excellent. Well, uh, Jonathan has been involved in Google for quite a while. He's been involved in accelerated programs. I'm going to read off his bio right now. It's very interesting, and he was a just came into the space the other day and started talking, and I realized that he's very knowledgeable and really sharp and to the point when he speaks. So technology choices can break a startup. Jonathan has seen this firsthand from his time in early stage accelerations to his work at Google Cloud and in building AI solutions for fintech and radiology. He's a seasoned engineer with deep expertise in HPC, Google Cloud infrastructure, and the latest AI offerings. If you want to understand how to leverage bleeding edge AI and make informed technology decisions to accelerate your startup growth, don't miss this session right here where we're interviewing John. With a career spanning early stage accelerations in Google infrastructure, Jonathan has lived the startup journey from HTP to cutting edge fintech. Perfect. So that's, this is going to be I'm very excited. Andy, how are you doing? And what are your thoughts? I don't hear anything. All right. So,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
yes, I do.
Just switch my mic around. Yeah, I listen. Google's got money. They've got tons of data. They've got huge market share. They've got name recognition and brand. Anything you can do to help with those things when they decide they're going to engage in we thought Google was falling behind, Chat GPT and Grok, and then all of a sudden they came out with an updated Gemini, and then faster, and then the new chip, and then you can't count any of these companies out. And I think in the next, looking ahead in the next couple months, you're going to see all kinds of new and interesting kind of developments where we stack these things together, where you add stuff and make them work in kind of a orchestration kind of way. I think that's the next piece. And then like some of the other guys mentioned in the past shows we've had, there's going to be an engine to create the right kind of prompt, to do the right kind of request, to get the right kind of answer. And I think that the next opportunity, and this is my tinfoil hat prediction, the next LLMs will be a natural language processor that produces a prompt, which then goes to the back end LLM, does the answers, brings it back, and then post processes it for us. I know that they're doing some portion of that in the LLMs right now, but I think that that's going to become a entirely separate service, and those are going to stack on top of each other. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to what Jonathan P has to say, and let's go. Let's get to it.
Absolutely. And yeah, Jonathan, just my background, I've been doing SEO forever, and my father's a physicist who's worked on artificial intelligence, publishing papers, and so I always talk to him about the Google machine and them, and what they've been doing for the past 15, 20 years. I've been using Workstation forever, and for websites and such, to make APIs for Google Maps or for what have you, and Google, reviews is super important for any business these days, depending on the business, if it's local or what have you. But so I went and I joined up to the Google Cloud AI dashboard. I'm looking at it right now, and it looks kind of like a kind of bit of an AI agent, a platform builder. I would love to hear what your take on the Vertex AI that Google Clouds has, and that's what because I'd love to learn more about it. And it would be fun to have you come back, and if we could do maybe a stream where we could do a screen share or something. But can you tell us a little bit about your journey that got you to where you were? Were you a mathematician? Like, what got you interested in data? And are you self-taught? Did you go to college? The beginning of your journey is always, to me, it's just interesting. I always love to find out how people got where they are.
Yeah, of course. So I'd say my beginnings were I went to University of Michigan, and I spent a lot of time doing hackathons. They kind of changed my life entirely, because when you're taking your engineering classes and you're doing your algorithms class, and they're like, okay, well, make a state machine, that has this level of performance, and it's going to output a poker game in C++ in text. And it's like, when am I going to see how the web is built? When am I going to see any like real applications of it? And then somebody takes you to a hackathon over the weekend, and you don't sleep, and people just build, 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 like the kind of building that we're seeing right now, but just with friends. And it's like, wow, you can do a lot just by Googling and having, understanding what APIs are and what offerings are out there. You don't have to build everything by yourself. So like I directed the largest collegiate hackathon at the time at University of Michigan. It's MHAX version 3. That was at the Big House. I think that was my coolest accomplishment. Anyways, so I kind of like didn't really see the light in my data science program, and I noticed that the bigger challenges that are very interesting, like big data, they weren't teaching us anything about the technologies that were required to be able to even process that stuff. Once you go outside of the scope of your laptop, processing a text file is fine. You can like learn, I guess, the fundamentals of data science. But data engineering, how do you process 15 terabytes of text files, like SEC filings, if you wanted to analyze the whole data set? And you need a completely different infrastructure for that. And I actually turned to Google because I didn't have any money because I was in college to try to experiment with these technologies. So eventually, like I was going to this meetup at my college to see if I could get some more Google Cloud credits, because it was a Google seminar for their tech team, and I met the director of RTS, which is the administrator group managing our research clusters. And he was, I guess, impressed with the project that I was working on, and he invited me to, work as an intern over there. Um, and this man named Bob Killen was my mentor, and he said, ignore what the rest of the team is doing. We're going to focus on container architectures and Kubernetes, because they were building a next generation data center. And those are actually the technologies that Google pioneered. And Google's Kubernetes is kind of like the de facto web scale technology that allows you to deploy any application across, like, Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, anywhere. It's just become like the configuration language for that. So that's kind of how I got my upbringing. I didn't learn anything the traditional way, which is having servers and virtual machines and whatnot. I've kind of been just in love with how Google's been architecting solutions that are kind of the ones that you're not thinking about right now, but they do have a purpose, and it's only a Google level company that's thinking about this stuff. That extends into their AI research. But I guess over the years after that, I've worked at like early stage startups, all of which use Google, a conversational AI company that was, I guess, a competitor to Google's CX platform back in the day, and also a healthcare AI firm when we analyzed radiological imagery and deployed models to detect, I guess, bad stuff. Let's put it that way. I'm not a doctor. So understanding the technical difficulties in deploying into those kinds of environments is kind of it's enlightening to see, like, how difficult it actually is to do stuff like that and keep data safe and compliant. So yeah, that's I guess now we're here. AI is exploding. Lost my job last year, so like just in this time frame, it's been an insane amount of development. And as you said, Google's been sleeping, so it seems, on all this tech, while ChatGPT is exploding and OpenAI is like supposedly the best company in the world. But Google's been cooking, and they've released their Gemini with the massive context window that with the multimodality functionality. And it's a lot of the documentation to read through to really see, like, what are they trying to do here with this? Like, how is this going to be so fundamentally different than what the current offerings are, and why does this even matter? And I think we're just beginning to see that right now. I can delve into that a little more if you'd like.
Oh, I was gonna circle back around just for a minute, and then I think let Andy ask a question or two. But I've never done a hackathon, and so I'm just curious about a hackathon and what within the structure of the hackathon or within that early stages did you find that sparked an interest that got you to your mentor? And when you worked with your mentor, what year is that? Because I've been, with following the whole Google story for a long time as an SEO guy, trying to understand the algorithms and stuff and how to work with them. But I'd be really curious to know what year that was about, because there were some, I think it was in 1911 with Google Plus came, or 2011, not 1911, when Google Plus came out and such like that. And just because minds do different things, and it sounds like that yours has a specialty within the understanding of all this.
Yeah. So first of all, a hackathon, or at least a well executed hackathon, in college is they used to pay you to go to like a 150 person hackathon in like a different college, and so this would be sponsored by small companies that wanted to get their APIs used by enthusiasts, right? Like people who just wanted to try building stuff. So they'd have engineers on the ground, and they would help you like while you're there for 48 hours. Try to build anything, just something, anything, get it together. And it's not about what comes out of it so much as it is the building experience, right? So for people who are like, they don't know anything about how to build with web, you're going to find all the nerds who are already leagues, above you, and technologies that you get to use for free. And that's the important part. There's an environment where you can try building stuff for free with people who are like the friends that want to just randomly hack on stuff, and also those engineers that are building those exact tools to come and help you do it. Oftentimes they would just like say, hey, you want to try building that? We have a beta. Let's give you access to that real quick and see what you can do with it. It's a great opportunity for companies to come try to get their stuff built with, because the developer relations and developer experience is super important if you're building an API that needs to be used. to build applications, right? So yeah, that's I think what was really inspiring was as I'm like getting my dinner and I'm like kind of amazed to be in another school. There's this dude gets on stage and he's like, so here's Twilio. Here's how we use this API. And I'm like, and he's like, all right, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create a phone number. All right, I want everyone to text this phone number. So everybody texts the phone number. And then he says, okay, so I'm gonna upload this file here. Here's the file path, a Gundam style. All right, so and then we're gonna click run, and everybody's phone started ringing, and it played Gundam style on the phone. And mind you, this took 3 minutes for him to do this demo. And I didn't know what programming language he was doing, but that was like, are you kidding me? Like this, like I think that was probably like the best introduction to what's possible, just with APIs and stuff like that. But I mean, that was a really good demo. There's a lot of really not too cool demos with poor sponsors. Like Walmart was not a good API provider. They just wanted to sponsor because they wanted their name on it. So indie companies that are really good with developer relations are the people you want in your hackathons because they're really exciting to work with, and easy to build with. Google Cloud is one of those people as well, because they just offer you credits. You can't do anything without credits. It's difficult to try stuff without credits, which is why I think their approach recently is make it really cheap, make it free, have a great free tier, have great tools for people to experiment with LLMs because it's not simple, make it palatable, and make it easy to build actual stuff with. So yeah, that's my inspiration. And 2016 is roughly the time that I got that internship, I believe. Kubernetes wasn't even out yet. It was just in the works. Nobody cared about it. They thought it was stupid.
Andy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think everybody understands what Docker containers and Kubernetes are, but it's okay. I'm going to give you a real brief background for people who are listening in the future who don't know what we're talking about. Originally, there was a computer and you had all of the operating system and the applications on one computer, like a desktop under your desk. Then they virtualized it. They virtualized the entire thing. So you could have a virtual computer sitting in another somewhere else. Then they broke up the application layer and the operating system layer. And then inside the operating system and inside the application layer, there's typically three places. There's the presentation side, the GUI, the graphical interface that you see, the application, the processing, how does it process and get the answers, and then some kind of data storage. And all he's talking about is kind of the current technologies we use to break those things up. So we don't have to have a whole virtual machine dedicated to a database. We can just have a database sitting over in a corner, or we can just connect to it. It's just a service on some other platform. We don't have to build the whole entire operating system and maintain the entire thing. So we can just do that. So, okay. So anyway, so a little background cool. That's for that. Now I have a quick question for you, right? So in the virtualization space, when you look at all these kind of Google tools and Gemini and the various things, and we've got Ross here because Ross is awesome. He can help with this question. Probably do a better job at asking the question than I can. But my question is, don't you think that the free tier is going to be limited by either the cost for the energy to run the compute, or just the volume of the kinds of questions and answers that you're going to be able to do? And very shortly after you initially get some good answers, you're going to run directly into some kind of limitation. Either you're not going to have enough of the context window, or you're not going to have enough responsiveness, or it's going to take too long, or whatever. Don't you think that's going to end up kind of being the constraint? Because it's like Google, right? You get Gmail, cool, it's great, until you get to 2 gigabytes of storage, and then they're like, yeah, now it's $2 to pay for more storage. Don't you think that's kind of the way that they're going to go? I mean, is that kind of what you're seeing?
So I think there's a differentiation to be made here between free tier like Gemini, like Gemini.google.com, like their application, and free tier in Google AI Studio. The free tier in Google AI Studio it's an experimentation playground for the like long-term use of actually using their API. So like you can do in their I guess in Studio it's free, right? You can do it's completely free in AI Studio, and they have a limitation of like a certain number of requests per day. But like 50 requests per day, let's see. 2 requests per minute, it says. But this gives you a playground to just try it. And I think, using their API, if you wanted to start, hacking on it the way, in a hackathon type style, you take that what you learn in the AI studio, you start building a basic application, you have an API key, and then because you're accessing it programmatically, you're able to access it a lot more quickly. So they have a little bit higher of a free tier. What is it, 1,500 requests per day and 15 requests per minute. So that's enough to demo an application, but it's not enough to sell an application, right? Uh, the difference between Gmail and something like this is that you use Gmail for free. You use Google for free. You use Google Maps for free as a person, right? All of these things they offer you for free because, like, the data that they're collecting on you is that's how they're making money. So there's no privacy guarantee, and the internet inherently is somebody's paying for that. The internet seems like it's free to people, but there has to be a way to monetize being able to use services on the internet, and that comes with some I guess trade-off in terms of privacy, or they're marketing something to you. So yeah, of course 2 gigabytes of storage on Gmail is free, but that's because they're giving you 2 gigabytes for free, and that's good enough for most people to actually use the product in an effective way. So like, no, I don't think it's going to be limited to your like based on the amount of energy it takes. But I also have thoughts on that, because if you look at what OpenAI has done with their like lack of free tier for a while, they are not really dealing with the energy usage. Azure, and not being able to use anything but NVIDIA components. It's not really a cost optimized model, and they didn't have to care about that because they're the market leader, and companies purchased millions of tokens as a partnership with Microsoft slash OpenAI to be able to just play with this stuff. And that inherently is a limiting factor. And once you get into the economics of the per token requests, I think these companies are getting destroyed when you try to do any kind of AI workflow, and you see how much it costs per token to be able to do anything with their stuff. So yeah. Can I talk a little bit about the technologies that Google has that allows them to have such a low number for their pricing?
Yeah.
Because their pricing is like top. It's
Yeah.
best in
Please,
class.
please share with us, Jonathan, because remember, we're not, we are only experts because of what everybody's told us, right? So share with us all the new stuff so that we can continue to share this with everybody else, and then figure out ways to use this to help people make money and do more business.
And
Okay.
and one thing, Jonathan, if you when you get a minute, just I would love to hear what you believe the Vertex AI dashboard is best used for in terms of applications for business owners, marketers, anybody. So,
Okay.
but do that as you wish.
Okay, so I will do that. So you're asking about the delineation of Vertex AI versus AI Studio and that API versus Firebase and GenKit and that version of the API. And then there's also Gemini for like personal and Gemini for business as well. I'll go into that in a second, because they have a bunch of different offerings and they're kind of confusing, but they are for different purposes.
And
Let me get to that
and
in a
also one of the functions that do you ever consult with businesses just to help them to understand this, or you're purely development?
I would love to. I wish more like I had some sort of following so I could be like an expert in this space, but typically it seems like it's a consulting type thing. I mean, that's why I'm not a consultant myself, and I don't work for a firm that is, I guess, uh, developing these applications, right? Um, and yeah, no, that would be interesting to solve people's problems or hear what they have, and I could point them in the right direction. Maybe this is my in for being a DevRel guy, but yeah, there's solutions to everything. So yeah, so their pricing model is very cheap because of the technologies they've invested in early on to be able to deploy models at scale in a cheap way. Uh, I mentioned earlier, NVIDIA GPUs are very expensive to run, and scaling out workloads on them is somewhat difficult, and it hasn't been very easy to do. Same with training. People say it's super expensive to do, and this was the case. But Google invested a lot of money into their own platform, or their own custom accelerator called a TPU. That's how they've been able to, they had TensorFlow, which was their vertically integrated, I guess, programming language, if you want to call it that, for developing machine learning and AI stuff. And nobody wanted to use that, obviously, because a lot of people don't like using Google's technologies. It didn't work for them. So they took the PyTorch library, which is created by Facebook that powers most of the AI models these days, and they were able to port it to the TPU. So people could get the same type of like execution costs for their models, but be able to run it on their custom TPU infrastructure. And that and some scale out technologies that allow them to get to Google scale, as I mentioned before. Now they can spread out their Gemini model across data centers, entire data centers, and it scales out horizontally. So scaling out horizontally is not something you can do with a standard NVIDIA architecture. It kind of requires a custom accelerator, and that kind of thought process. So it's just the complications behind sharding. TPUs are super efficient, and that's why Google is able to put Gemini 2.0 into literally every application they have. That's the only way it was going to be possible. So, I mean, they've been working on this for years, right? Whether fifth generation, sixth generation, insanity that you can have an entire data center running one model and have multi-zone data centers. So, like one or two data centers hosting the same model. If you turn one of the data centers off, it's still able to serve it with an SLA, which is a service level agreement, saying like if you were a business, you wouldn't have any acceptable downtime, maybe seconds per year worth of downtime. Like that's what Google's doing. That's like the perfect level of like excellence that they have when they're serving APIs, and that really shows their expertise in like what they need themselves to actually deploy model. They can give that to customers as well to be able to have that same type of technology to do the same level of service level agreement and have that reliability in mind. So that was me nerding out. By the way, this is all based on Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is also a scale out technology that Google uses to make things web scale and resilient. That's an important concept. So yeah, let's get into the delineation between all of Google's AI offerings, and I'll start with the Vertex AI, which is an offering within Google Cloud. So as I mentioned before, we have the people who are using the AI Studio that you can just go to right now, aistudio.google.com. And that's a place to play with the models and see like what kind of structures you would need to be able to execute their stuff as code. And actually, really, even as a non-developer, just see what they're capable of. I mean, without having to pay for Gemini or anything like that. The fact that you can upload like a massive video into the prompt of AI Studio for free and have it transcribed with timestamps and have people identified and objects identified in every single scene for every second for like an hour or two, if is mind blowing just to see that technology. So it's also like a way that they can tout their. I just say like, hey, this is what's possible these days. So that's what AI Studio is for. It's a developer experience, but not for the hardcore developer that might be working in an enterprise. There's a second kind of developers that are making mobile apps or Android applications, and they should turn to Firebase. Firebase is Google's like application and mobile application platform, and that it integrates a lot of their best practices and makes it very simple to do authentication, user retention, user multi-factor authentication, have managed database solutions, have authenticated backends, have API access that's gated and protected and monetized, and be able to deploy to the Google Store and stuff like that. All of these technologies are like best practices that you kind of think of later in the game, typically if you're developing something, and they just have them kind of upfront and ready for you as easy to build components so that you can do it the right way the first time and not have to worry about that. And they kind of push you towards that model. Also, generous free tier, might I add. So their GenKit SDKs. How do you actually like put LLMs inside of an application in a highly like developer friendly way? So like when you have an agential workflow and you have a bunch of agents doing a couple different things and they're all over the place, you need a way to easily see the trace of like your input to like some backend, some LLM doing something, to it, the response coming back, to maybe you're using a different LLM or a different service and that response coming back. You need a way to easily like trace this, just like a network request goes through a system. And they have a great dashboard that allows you to trace, like where do the LLMs screw up, or which part in the pipeline, which is a component that's kind of native to GenKit, is broken, right? Which places can I optimize? What things are breaking? And this helps developers make actual like good LLM experiences on mobile or web. So I haven't really heard many people using this too much, but that's like their primary like developer experience at the like mobile app level or like website level. So those are like the first three. Then we have Vertex AI and Google Cloud. Vertex AI is the cloud level, enterprise level offering. This is when they have the entire suite of everything. This is their maximum send zone. Not for the average developer, not for a one person team necessarily. This is where you have an established company that may be using Google Cloud Services already, but they might want to do ML training on some data. They want to run training jobs on their own custom models. They want to deploy, different kinds of models and A/B test them against each other and run correlation and test suites against them so that they can determine what model is actually better over time. It's an entire MLOps platform, and MLOps is the machine learning operations. So that comes from the data collection and managing data sets to seeing the lineage of data sets, so you know that the data is like legit and changing over time, where the data came from, training on that data, managing the model, training processes, deploying jobs to actually train the models on this data, and then validating how good they are. So this is also like deploy any model you want in an enterprise fashion. So this is the toolkit for that. So like if you're in healthcare or you're in fintech or you're at a large organization using cloud services, and you have a certain compliance agreement level that you have to maintain that says the user data doesn't go outside of your platform, everything's audited and logged, and there's like a firewall around it that does packet inspection, and there's rules to like very locked down, right? You don't have these kinds of rules outside of Vertex AI, but outside of Vertex AI, but within this platform, you can get those kinds of assurances. So you could be at Mayo Clinic and have a team that are building models, but they're doing it in a safe way, and they're able to deploy those APIs internally. Um, it's I've been rambling for a while, but that's what Vertex AI is really for targeted, and it's a scary place to go into the first time because there's so many docs that you have to read to like really understand what's going on. But if there's an analog, I think what's the analog to this in Azure? Azure has an AI Foundry or something like that, where you can just deploy all the open source models and run them in some managed way. It's similar to that. The only difference is that Google is obviously focused on offering every single possible offering that exists except for OpenAI. And because they're an open source focused company, they're going to say, like, if you want to run Claude in an enterprise fashion that same way, they have a hosted version of that you can run, or any of their partners as well. So yeah, that's Vertex AI. It's for enterprise mainly, and their pricing model is complicated because it's for huge web scale type applications. You want to run models that you're serving millions of customers globally and be able to have like an SLA on that uptime, the same way that Gemini has an SLA on uptime. That's where you'd go. And I think this is when we can mention like when are they going to limit you as far as like the energy usage of you like running these models, and that is a very interesting pricing model actually, because you can purchase quotas for like bursts of capacity, or I guess you can buy capacity in the same way you buy compute capacity, but to run models if they're managed for you. Serving models yourself on GPUs is not a simple feat. So they manage that for you if you would like. So you can just purchase capacity from them. But yeah, like hosting models in a cost-effective way is actually insanely expensive. And I should post a stat for this. Character AI did a talk about this. While I'm looking this up, feel free to ask me a question.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you hear about periodically is people getting crazy bills for using an LLM. And I've, used Google Workspace, and for using the API, you get charged, and then you have like there's a $20 flat fee and going over it. It'd be fun to play around with Vertex AI, but is there a way to put limits on that, or do they charge per token or per action, or how is that? And is there any place to get like a quick study of it? Have you seen any good YouTube videos for any of these products, or something where someone can kind of start using these things without a huge learning curve?
Vertex AI has a huge learning curve. That is not going to be questionable. but that's because it's big tools have big problems, and they're focused on a very like large set of potential issues and things that you might want to work on somewhere in the ML stack. So if you don't know what ML ops is, you should learn what that is. I mean, you can go to their documentation page on Vertex AI to get the 0 to 1. They have this thing called Cloud Innovators Plus, which is a learning platform where they give you credits, or you buy in, but they give you Google Cloud credits and classes and workshops that you can learn about Vertex AI and play with its features, but they give you credits to do so in a lab type environment. That's probably the best way to go through it, or maybe just look at their offerings and ask Gemini, ask Gemini about it. But maybe use Google's new AI mode that I've been just trying today. I haven't really started using it much. Gemini, this is their new version of search. It's like Perplexity, but Google. If you guys know what that is, it's kind of cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's where I'd go for sure. But if you're not super technical, definitely use AI Studio.
So I think John, you posted that in the Purple Pill, right? So AI Studio, yeah, Google AI Studio is in the Purple Pill, along with some live stream links and Firebase and a few other things. So yeah, if you're watching or you're listening, you can go into the Purple Pill. Crazy right now, we have more people watching the live stream than who've joined X. So if you're on the live stream, join the X space and raise your hand, bring one of the speakers and ask Jonathan a question. So, hey, Ross, thanks for joining. Do you have any questions for Jonathan?
Well, hi, how are you? Not necessarily for Jonathan. Also, hi, Jonathan.
Hey.
But for AI, John, you're basically using Vertex AI right now, dude. When you're using the API and creating workflows, you're literally interfacing with Vertex.
Well, that's what I assumed. It looked to me like basically it's my AI tutor in a more complicated version with probably a greater cost. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm touting my AI tutor all the time, but the power of that platform, I've been creating agents kind of on a regular basis, and then going to prompts, and then creating prompts, in-depth prompts, and then using the thing that Sanan talked about, the DSPY programming prompting kind of a site, and getting into some pretty sophisticated stuff. And it's just insanely powerful. And yeah, and then when I look at the I look at Vertex AI, it's pretty much a more complicated version of my AI tutor. But yeah, Jonathan, it'd be cool if you got a chance to check that out. But yeah, I don't want to.
I did. I got the demo. Just so AI Tutor and Pixio, by the way, what they're talking about is their generous free tier, which is awesome for builders who want to hack on stuff and really get experience with all the kinds of I don't know how far you've come by now, but I mean how quickly you built to when I last saw it, which was many months ago. I would assume it's insane at the moment. But if you want a playground to just see what all the models are capable of, not just Google, that's where I'd go just to check it out. Definitely do that.
And
that's good. You need that kind of exposure without having to pay OpenAI so much money to try stuff.
From your perspective, I'm familiar. There's a lot of people here that use my AI tutor, and follow tech in schools and kind of understand that platform. I think maybe that's a place to talk about all this Google AI, the dashboards and platforms and capabilities. Can you kind of put a one-to-one together, or basically on that? And then also, one thing that really bothers me with Gemini and Google Sheets, I want to pull data I want to scrape the internet and throw it into Google Sheets. And why doesn't Gemini have that capacity when I can go to my AI tutor and tell it to scrape all of Reddit and give me an answer, and it does it without any issues?
I see. I mean, I'm not sure that's they might have rolled back the integration, but Google's going to be very intentional about what kind of features they roll out, because they want it to be a functionality that's really used in the workplace. But for instance, I can scrape the web right now, or at least you used to be able to, um, for like a particular thing, and like for instance, find me all the restaurants within a like a 20-mile radius of like the West Oakland, and then return the data in like I want their name, I want their website, I want their phone number, and I want their social media handle on Instagram in this tabulated or the columnar format, and then it will do that, and then it'll return it in a table, and you can ask that to be exported to Sheets. But the search capability, I don't know if you remember Bing back in the day when Microsoft pushed OpenAI to release a beta so that they could get API access to make Bing better. That's some lore. That's some history for you. Bing was cool back then because Bing had their backend so they could search stuff, and then they had like the first real agential workflow. If you think about it, running it through OpenAI. But yeah, they could search the web and push stuff directly into a model back then. But they like that's not really an offering that Google wants to give for free because people can scrape that and copy it and use that to really what Google is they're showing right now is AI is required to be able to make use of information on the web. Before, Google was like the search engine to organize information to make it easy to like for somebody to find stuff. Now it's AI is required to be the interface which you use to find information on the web, and I guess they're the market leader on that, and they don't want you to be able to use their AI to scrape stuff at a like a big level. So I mean, I do think there's probably some integrations that you can use with Google for Google Search for Workspace. If you are logged into the Workspace profile, they have a different set of applications that are different from what you'd see as a normal like basic pleb user like me, even with AI Studio, Gemini Advanced. But they want to be right about everything that they have, right? So Perplexity will find links that are maybe up to date, kind of. That's ChatGPT will find links that are sometimes relevant and up to date. Google wants to make sure that they're 100% as up to date as possible, because they got like dunked on $10 billion when they did their bar demo for having one thing that wasn't perfectly accurate and up to date. So they can't afford to screw up. If you look at their newest thing, the AI mode, I have a feeling that this, when it comes out of experimental tier, is when it gets ported to business is going to be exactly that, because I'm looking at it right now and everything that you search it's literally Google search as up to date as it is, but in a like LLM type output, if that makes sense. It's like Perplexity, but it's on live data that Google has access to.
Yeah.
So I definitely could see this being a paid tier that they would make more expensive for Workspace customers if you want to have that kind of functionality.
Yeah, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit yesterday in terms of the difference between the algorithm, search algorithm on Google, than the way LLMs pull up information, and it's they're not equal, and it basically explained that like the Google algorithm is more like a library or a a data set that it will go through the whole plethora of the data set, as opposed to the LLM. ChatGPT was talking about, and Grok, about very certain authority or a like list of various websites on a certain topic. And the thing with Google, though, Google giveth and then Google taketh away. I mean, with analytics, it's just stripping. You can't even get conversions on analytics anymore, and it's crazy. And so it'd be hard to depend on them for anything, because they're going to do what they're going to do without any care in the world whether or not it affects positively or negatively any group of business, or and that's kind of my experience with the long-term understanding or working with what they offer. What are your thoughts on that?
So you work in the SEO side of Google's offerings, right?
Yes, helping businesses get found on the internet and bringing in business. Yes.
So this is unfortunately some like aspect of Google that is being disrupted massively by, number one, how much BS information is on the internet, how much AI generated slop exists, and just like repeat content that has effectively, the same SEO, like quality metrics as, it could be cloned. Like you could have a good website, and all of the data that's on that website could get rewritten slightly differently and posted somewhere else. And I mean, it's because it's directly tied to capital and like, money that's made. There's an incentive for people to do this, and therefore everybody's trying to win off of Google. Everybody's trying to win off of their engine. So you have to, unfortunately, forgive them for like changing their model, but it can be gamed in the sense that you're competing with everybody who's trying to make money for free, without generating any good for the world or in any way. No, not a real business. They're just trying to get found so that they can harvest the cash that Google has so much of. And that's the state of things. So I mean, this is why Google search went to trash, over a time period. They had to completely change the way that they were doing their search algorithm, on top of being able to market, to people and sell ads at the same time. So like I feel bad for them kind of in a sense. Like this exploded in a way that they're making it as smooth as possible for the SEO industry. But I mean that's, you're beholden to that if that's what your business is. So there are a lot of new features. I'm trying to get into the SEO side of things because I know what they've done for security and like why they had to make some of the changes. Right, they wanted to move away from cookies altogether, um, because cookies are like there's all this privacy stuff, and GDPR was like no, 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 absolutely not. Let's put this little box on every website. Otherwise they'll get just sued again and again and again in Europe for billions of dollars. So they tried to get rid of the cookie, and then because the industry was so dependent on it, and the industry doesn't want to move, they had to say, okay, I guess we won't get rid of the cookie, even though they had the privacy sandbox. They had all the technologies developed to get rid of the cookie to enable privacy, and they had to roll it back because of everybody was saying like they were going to sue Google somehow. There was some legal standing that they could, uh, like sue Google over doing that. So I mean, they're kept in the past. So now what are they supposed to do and still maintain privacy? Conversions, those are tracked with some sort of uh tracking aspect. I'm not necessarily sure how they're doing it, but it's either cookie based or people were running code, JavaScript that be executed on every website, so that they could see at a higher level, like the Google tags. Was Google Tag Manager let you do that? Lots of stuff, right? And so maybe that's why they had to get rid of that information. Maybe it's because the government's trying to rip them apart because Microsoft is like, hey, they still have search and we don't. Let's rip them apart. They shouldn't have that because we don't have enough market share above anything. Don't look at us. Uh, I detest Microsoft, by the way. I think that they're stifling innovation, and all they're trying to do is just copy everything and then keep everybody inside their platform due to vendor lock-in. By the way, that's something I want to mention. If you want to build for cloud, you want to build to be ready to deploy everywhere and like pick up and move if you need to. Do it the first time through Google Cloud and the way that they want you to do it, because that means that you can move anywhere you want and take advantage of any of the other platforms if it becomes cost competitive or have a feature you like. But to do it the other way around, it's impossible to leave. So you can always go one directional on this type of thing when it comes to deploying code or developing for a particular cloud platform. And there's a reason that Kubernetes is annoying, and the way Google Cloud does it is annoying. It's not intuitive, but when you do learn it, you realize that everybody else has adopted the same thing. They just don't want you to see it because then you can leave. Anyways, um, yeah, it's look at what they're doing with for SEO in terms of like they have a new like AI search optimization. So they created the robots.txt like file that you would put to like either deter like a scraper from scraping your website to get indexed, or not. And I think they have one for AI to be able to scrape your website as well. So like being discoverable nowadays is a matter of, can the AI find you, and what does that data structure look like, so it's as easy as possible to show up as not slop. You want to be the I guess the one source for a particular type of information, not a repeat copy of the same type of information. You think about how the AI does the summary thing, like all the verbose words in your document as you're trying to write, it can summarize it and get rid of the stuff it doesn't need. and that's what it's going to do to the Google search, and that's what it's going to summarize from when it looks at the available information it has in the websites it can find it from. Don't be part of that slop. They want you to be unique and have unique information specific to something very specific. So don't be Forbes, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I love your input. We're getting near the end of the hour. I don't know if Andy has to go. I don't know if you have to go. I really love this conversation, and there's some code that I put in that will allow the LLMs to use a site and stuff, and so. But then there's all kinds of questions about what they're going to do with that data. Andy, where are you at?
Well, I've been chatting with some other folks on the live stream. We've got a bunch of people watching there as well. So if you're listening, come over to join the X space so you can join the conversation. But yeah, listen, Jonathan, it's awesome. I've got 5 minutes left, and then I'm going to have to. I'll leave, but you guys can keep going. The space continues as long as John's got time, and we've got questions there.
I got plenty of time, guys. So
yeah, great information. I love the whole, the containerized thinking is really, really important. And I think maybe you should hit a little bit on that, right? So most people believe one thing, right? They have a paradigm. They think a computer is a laptop, or a computer is a machine connected to a screen with a keyboard and a mouse. Well, we have to help everybody understand that the computer is really not the compute, the processing, the information that does stuff. It's not just on your phone. It's not just on your laptop anymore. It is literally a distributed network of thousands of devices across a wide, so far a range of things that'll blow your mind, where the data centers are, where the databases are, where the storage is, how that stuff is transferred. That whole infrastructure is just mind-blowing to people who've never known about or considered it. But that's really what we're talking about. Massive data centers using massive amount of energy to give us, the 3 paragraphs of can you turn this thing into a nice email? Can you convert this into a grid and give me the questions on the left and answers on the right? The simple things that we think are, as humans, are just paper and I write stuff down with a pen. The processing it takes to do that is pretty massive, and I think you should help expand the idea. And remember, Jonathan, not everybody understands what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it down a level, as if you're talking to me, like I'm your like a grandma. Help grandma understand how this works at a very simple level, but also more importantly, what can you do with it? Okay, we've talked about all these amazing things. How can we use this in our lives? Jonathan, how are you using this today? How does this make you do things easier, better, faster? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
For containers, I'd love to explain that real quick. How does it make my life better? So containers, me loving this stuff is my avoidance of trying to compete with all of the best engineers that can write code. That's ultimately what it is. And why do I say that? Containers are like Lego blocks, right? When somebody builds a database and you have a whole company that's doing the development and research and executing the best database ever, right? And they can package it up into a Lego. An application is only built of a couple of Legos or many Legos, and they talk to each other over interfaces. So imagine you have a whiteboard and you draw this box and it says database, and then you say, I want the backend. So there's a backend that you have to write yourself. So that's the middle, and you draw a box, and then somebody else has already built the front end, and that talks to your backend. So then you draw a box to the left of that, and you draw a connecting line. The components that you're not building, that's built by anybody else, those are packaged, if they are in Docker, right? They can be packaged into a Docker container, so you don't have to touch it, but you can still build an application without having to redo any of their work. The only thing you have to understand is how the thing that you're building, the center block in this diagram, interacts with either the front end and the back end, or whatever your application is actually connecting to. And that allows you to keep things in scope, right? You can have a front end team that is just doing the front end and put that in a box, right? And have a back end team that's working on the back end. Have an API team that's building a service, that is building an API. And these all go into these Lego blocks that are packaged. When I'm deploying your guys' code at scale, that type of connectivity allows me to do all kinds of interesting things to scale it up and out. But like fundamentally, it's like, don't redo work that's already been done. And so from a development point of view, like Docker lets anybody take your code down just like from GitHub, but execute it on any machine in exactly the way that it was meant to be executed, because that's what goes into building a Docker container. It's got everything you need just to run that part of the application. So if you can construct the Lego blocks into an application, then like you have the whole thing. All right, that's it. You just got a couple of Lego blocks. You don't need anything complicated. It'll always work. And that level of abstraction makes a lot of sense, right? It's easy to develop like that at scale. So don't ignore the hype cycles around technology. There's if you want to get into this and understand like what it means to like have application architecture and why this stuff matters, learn Docker from how to build a Docker container, and then learn what Docker Compose is, which is the composition of Docker containers to build an application. And then you can learn Kubernetes on top of that after you learn how to scale your Docker application. Those are the 3 steps that you truly have to understand if you want to get to the Kubernetes level. But before you get to that point, I urge everybody to understand like just at least how to operate a single Docker container by themselves. It requires learning. It's not simple, guys. Okay, it's not. You can skip it and just understand everything and how it works. It's a core understanding that you have to have when you're developing applications for the modern era. So like, yeah, don't ignore it. Don't yeah. How does it make my life better? I love Kubernetes. I love Kubernetes. I love scale out technologies. I love complicated application architectures. I love taking 10 million radiological images and pushing it through an inference container that I can scale out as big as I want, and that's only possible with Docker. Container architectures. So that's why it's cool. Web scale stuff is awesome. Big problems are awesome. And you got to understand those core technologies.
Jonathan, you're giving so much information. I can't thank you enough. I'm gonna a couple things. First, everybody, please, if you're not following Jonathan, follow Jonathan. Put on alerts. He's really smart and he knows what he's doing. And if you are a business owner or you're a developer, is it okay if I reach out to him if you've got something that's of interest, that a problem that he might be able to solve? And also, that our audience is developers, business owners, and also people that are interested in AI, but developers on every level and business owners on every level. We have some people in the audience that are really doing cutting edge stuff that's on the forefront of AI, that's on the forefront of business worldwide. So and please, if you go to my account and go to my community, AI Toolbox, if you get a chance. It's a great community. Also sign up for the startup community. That's what this space has been brought to you by, the startup community. It's a great community. So Jonathan, talking to business owners, people that are interested in putting their money into something, based on your knowledge and where we're going in the near future, not hugely speculating, what insights can you give to people? I guess we could do 3 tranches: the developers that are at various levels, people that have current businesses, and people that are looking to expand their business or start something new. What insight can you give them based on your understanding of things, what you've accomplished and where things are going in the immediate, like, next 12 months?
Next 12 months is going to be a lifetime, guys. Let me tell you that, because just given the research and how quickly everything comes out, it's an infinite amount of time. So it's for people who haven't yet started their business or are looking into like actually building getting started on getting an actual domain email, right? And starting from that point of view, because that's the first thing you need to do as a startup is establish yourself with an email address and have employee emails and stuff like that, right? That first choice I think is super important. I think the easiest thing to do is get a Google Workspace. I used to have a referral link if you guys want to do that, but that's probably the best way to get set up so that it's as simple as possible. You don't have to do too much. The pricing is very basic and you can expand from there. But that's just my interpretation because you don't need a whole team of people to manage your stuff once you start scaling it all or pay for services. I find it very simple to use. If you look at any of the VC companies that are going through their accelerator right now, sorry, YC companies, everybody's using Google Workspace. It's great. It's just simple. It's great, and it allows you to take advantage, like I guess, downstream of a lot of their bleeding edge AI tech that they have in their cloud platform. And they obviously want people that have unique problems to have them solved the Google way. So they will consult with you to make sure you're setting yourself up for success instead of getting locked into something that's going to cost a lot of money later, or like not taking advantage of all of the best practice research that they have done over the years to be able to scale companies that are doing AI and just doing web scale technologies the right, cost effective, secure is huge way. For business owners right now, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, like what kind of problems do you have at the moment, right? Like if you're already stuck inside, Microsoft's, clutches, it's difficult to get outside of that. So it really depends on, is it an enterprise level problem where you're really stuck where you are at the moment? You want to take advantage of these technologies? Should you invest more into Azure and their stuff, or is there a way to take it like start playing with Google Cloud stuff? That's a question that would be on a per customer basis. I mean, I would just bet on Google. I mean, I would love to. I don't mean to be a shill, like a massive shill, but like Microsoft is building tools on like they know the businesses, they know what processes exist, and they're able to sell services that are just building on top of that. For the next generation of stuff, I bet on Google because they don't have the products that are like already, for problems that have already been defined, right? Like that have already been solved. They're building the foundation for and the components to build the next thing that's gonna come up. So I think that anything that's already been thought of right now is already being done at a very rapid rate. So I kind of would want to bet more if you're a new or a low stage startup or early growth on having the biggest set of available tools possible. Rapid iteration is key. You look at every application right now that you're seeing being like built out. Everybody can copy everybody in minutes with these AI tools. So being competitive is very difficult. You have to have some sort of advantage these days. What else? Developers, um, stop looking at OpenAI for guidance, please. Please stop looking at them for guidance. Just try looking outside that horizon and what you see on AI Twitter, because it's just people saying the same thing again and again and again. But there are alternative, like newer ways of doing things that exist. If you look through the technical documentation on Google, you'll see some design patterns that don't apply to existing models that you can do with Gemini, mainly around the lines of you don't need RAG for most things with Gemini because it's multimodality and it's massive context window. So like there's some simplifications you can have there and you can play with it, right? So look into that for sure. And if you $200,000 for people who want to do Google cloud based startups. So I know Azure offers the same thing, but like if you have a good idea, you want to scale it out, 200 grand is a lot of grand.
Yeah, so Google, I heard about that. So Google, and also we have a lot of amazing people in the audience. Please, I ask if you have a question, please step up and ask. It really makes the space much more dynamic when we have multiple people asking questions with various backgrounds, various knowledge. There's 1,000 pieces to this puzzle. I know a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver. So I bring a narrow focus, and the more people that engage in the conversation with Jonathan, we have a much wider focus. And I'm sure that he knows that based on the people in the audience, I'm sure that he could shed some light on certain things. Yeah, I've had a Google Workspace email for I don't know how long, and I haven't really taken advantage of all the options with it. But it's consistent. You know, Google's kind of like Elon in the sense that, you know, yeah, bet on Google. I think you're absolutely correct on that. And do you feel that so basically what I hear you're saying is if you want the architecture to be right for the long term, Google is the only answer.
That is kind of correct. Yes, kind of correct. It's the practices that go into building within the architecture that are really the thing that allows you to be flexible and be unbounded in the architectures. Sorry, not the architectures. The technology choices you make. Think containers, right? You need a database. You just need a database with X functionality. It could be any container that has that functionality. It can be something you set up yourself. It could be one of their services. It could be somewhere else that's not on the platform. But thinking in that way up front and putting the time into designing it and really considering these things before you start making choices is the most important thing that they kind of force you to do on their platform. So like it gives you flexibility, this level of design thinking. And like also, I guess for your business, like what kinds of things will you like to be able to do long term versus like what can you do immediately right now? So like what kinds of capabilities would you like to have access to? And should you be able to shift later on if things change, right? If there's a better offering that offers something else that you like, those are considerations also. You have to think about that when you're planning your Google Workspace account too. Um, I'm not a certified Google Workspace expert, but I have spun up like 15 of them because you need a sandbox to trial or stuff, you know. Um, and there's a lot of functionality in there too that you might not recognize. I haven't even touched on Gemini and Workspace at the moment because I should probably spin one up myself to see what they've done over the last couple months. So yeah, I mean, if your concern is of regulations and then a data privacy and whatnot, keep in mind Google hasn't had any issues with that at all. Um, not with the Workspace customers, and that's all I can say about that. That the guarantees are there, and they have like golden paths for you to be compliant in those types of industries if that's required. So don't think of those as limitations. Think of those as more. Google's already figured that out for you, and they're still saying, "Let's go. Here's all the tools." Like they have to be competitive in those markets in ways that I guess other companies aren't. So I'd love to be able to hear people's problems, or if you guys can reach out to me. LinkedIn is the same thing as my name, um, and yeah, talk to me. Schedule time to have a call. I'm interested to hear what kinds of issues people are having, and like whether or not Google is makes sense for you, right? If I could even imagine a solution.
And are you you were saying that you really like complex problems. Do you enjoy working with all size businesses and like it's always good to have parameters like where's the cutoff point? You know, you don't want to waste your time or someone else's time. So kind of vetting contact to a certain degree is never a bad idea. So what's like your sweet spot and where do you, because I did a bunch of research the other day on blue ocean ideas, various things. There's a huge amount of concern on the internet right now. Well, depending on the age group and the background and the education about what's going to happen to everybody's jobs over the next coming years. And so based on your knowledge, where are you positioning yourself? What are you thinking about in terms of keeping things going. I'm thinking about a farm and a creek, but that's me.
Same, kind of. It's really demoralizing when after you lose your last position and it's like the tools start coming out and you're like, wow, I could have done the impossible. I could have done the work of teams because as an infrastructure guy and me not understanding the code that's going into like the developers, like what they're doing necessarily, if they're not like willing to like work with you to help understand what's going on, and you have to make changes at the enterprise level due to requirements. Like I couldn't go in there and have the interpretability to see like how would I repackage this in a way that is more compliant or more scalable. But now it's like now I can just go in and do that. I could have replatformed everything. I could have saved the world is what it feels like. But that just means that my job is effectively gone. It will be gone not too long from now. It's just infrastructure engineering as a whole, DevOps came out of the practice of systems administration, which is don't do the same thing again and again manually. Automate some of these processes. How do you deploy a VM at scale? Like you don't want to do the same thing again and again and screw it up. You automate it. CI/CD pipelines. You make it impossible for bad code to get into production and deploy automatically and roll back automatically and make sure that you don't have to touch it in any way because that's more reliable, right? So with that line of thinking, automating everything and just making all your work less complicated through automation, like the consulting aspects of doing a replatforming or a digital transformation have become far more easy because the questions are all that's all asking people at this point, right? Like learning about the technologies, doing discovery, all of this consulting stuff. It's just I need to figure out what types of questions I need to ask so that I can make the right architectural decisions and migration plan. That's going to be massively facilitated by LLMs because once you get a cookie cutter strategy and have like a problem scope that can be narrowed down into components, and you can have an LLM kind of break all of this down. Like the consulting requires much less talking and much more. Give me your data, let the thing look at what's going on, come up with a plan, and then like develop the actual code that be required to move everything. And then give me the keys to your castle so that I can actually have it be implemented, right? Not the LLM doing it, but me actually running the code that does the migration. So like you won't need as many junior people anymore. Like if you're getting into CS, like you should probably start thinking about how you can highly leverage your skills to not just build basic applications, but maybe get into security, privacy. Those are things that haven't been addressed yet, not really. And I think that Google's kind of really concerned about that as well. And hang on, my Google Home is actually talking to me. Stop it. Yeah, security is something that isn't really being discussed at all when we're talking about like being able to build things rapidly. And user data privacy and management is another thing that isn't really been talked about. Also, healthcare data is another aspect of this. So maybe get into those fields. I'm trying to think of what's not going to be eaten up in the next 12 months, or the last thing that'll be eaten up, which is enterprise sales. To be honest, so yeah, that's what it really is. I'd like to be in enterprise sales. That'll be the last thing to get eaten, but I would want to solve that problem too because I would want to see how I could use AI to make enterprise sales decisions more informed. So before somebody can get in and sell software that they don't need to somebody and get a hefty fee, I'd want to jump in and say, yo, use this tool to identify the problems that you actually have, and then here are some metrics in which this vendor is going to be able to satisfy them. Because here's another offering. It's called Google. It wouldn't be Google in this case, but it would be some tool that you actually need access, those capabilities from, and be able to make informed decisions on where you're spending your money and on what tools. So I think, yeah, get into enterprise sales, guys. Understand complicated problems and complicated solutions. That's the only way to stay ahead right now. But
Well, I mean, this is such an interesting conversation in the sense that it's affecting everybody in multiple, or most everybody in multiple ways. But the gold is between the ears. These things can't think. So I mean, if everything's handed over to this, isn't it creates a real vulnerability if nobody understands anything anymore because they don't have to. I mean, don't you think that there's an opportunity that there has to be some kind of Centurion guard or something to kind of keep an eye in case there's a huge solar flare or something happens where there's still people that retain this knowledge that understand how to put it back together in case something happens? Or, I mean, sometimes you have to make your own way. You have to show something that other people can't see.
I agree with that. And I think that it has to be documented if you think about it. Like if all of our knowledge and like systems are which currently exist in their current state were documented, we wouldn't have problems with change management. Um, so like being able to recreate what it currently is, and we don't do that right now as humans. Not to the level that would be required to recreate what currently is if there was some sort of disaster or things need to be replaced. Back to containerized thinking, you need that plan, you need some like piece of code, some enough documentation, I guess in this case because that's code for LLMs, to be able to recreate business structures, responsibilities, roles, functional inputs and outputs for each group, responsibilities, who you're talking to, is in terms of a business. Like, I think using LLMs to document this process so you could bootstrap it again, it would be very valuable, because at least then we could use AI technology to rebuild from where we were instead of having to not know what was happening at all, and not be able to rebuild, even if we had access to LLMs. But I hear what you're saying, and they're beginning to be able to think quite a bit. And these thinking models aren't really showing you how thinking is actually working, but I mean, the frontier really, really, really opened up when DeepSeek did their reinforcement learning training. They showed that you don't need to have humans in the loop for the thing to improve its reasoning ability, and that's like, okay, so now we're already not necessary for that anymore. Like, if you get the math to eat itself in a way that moves forward, we're kind of going towards the end at this point. So I wouldn't say that it's not thinking. Um, Google research, what is it? It's called, it's like SEAM, SIESEIM, is their Google research product. It's the co-scientists, um, and it is sorry, that's the medical one. No, they had a medical LLM technology that's like an agential workflow of some kind that was able to come up with a hypothesis for a new protein, and the lab wouldn't show that it was legit and proved it, and that happened like a month ago. So whoever said LLMs can't come up with new ideas is, I mean, that's limited in the thinking. But like, you won't see it until you do. So Google's out there just prove that hypothesis can be identified and proven by real world people. They're doing the same thing with AlphaFold, like limiting the scope of like gene discovery, just because they can model predictively like what things, what possible structures even exist. Like, this is the completely new frontier altogether. So to assume that not thinking is going to be the limitation, we're already past that, and it's not going to be the way that we see it right now. It's going to be whatever. I mean, what has Meta been doing? That's a question. What has Meta been doing silently over the last like year? They open source some of their llama stuff, and they're feasting off of all the development that's going around, like how do you work with open source models, and they're taking all of those in house, and being able to use them as their own developer tools without having to pay for them. Great idea. That's what open source is about. But like, they're probably doing some crazy stuff. They know everything about you guys. People who are on Instagram, they know everything, and we haven't seen a single thing from them at all. So in terms of like what stuff they're going to be able to sell as a product to businesses or like people who are trying to market their product, like, can you imagine the AI ads that they're probably already capable of generating? Like, just they could sell you that, right? Like, they could sell, just like, you don't have to do any of the copy anymore. They know exactly what is going to be like stimulating to an audience, and how to market it in exactly the way that is the most profitable, and they can charge you a huge premium for that. Like, what? Like, so yeah, dude, like, it's a different frontier altogether. So
Yeah,
thinking is hard, coming up with new ideas is hard. Like, iterating and programmatically generating new ideas and testing them, simulating them, um, having them built out automatically. These are all things that are going to happen. If enterprises are doing it, you're going to see it trickle down into the everyday person. I think we should look at what big enterprises are going to use data for and AI for to in terms of like process simplification, cutting the excess, like wherever excess can be cut. Just follow that train.
And Facebook is just, the platform itself is so lame, and it just, they don't even seem to care about any kind of, it hasn't changed much. It's just trying to navigate it around it or whatever. But I don't think they care. Yeah, I think they just don't care anymore because that's not where the future is. Um, uh, what the LLM? You have a question for Jonathan and then Kim?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jonathan. It's
Hello.
Sharon, John. I'm not sure if you know that.
Yes,
It's
I knew that. You didn't, so it was
Yeah,
up
I'm
to you
running
to
fast
introduce
forward.
yourself. So
Yeah. I hope you guys are well. Jonathan, I slightly, I do agree with most of the things that you're saying, but I do slightly disagree with being replaced and all those things because, first of all, we still have a very, very big issue with hallucinations. So there is still a lot of accuracy that needs to be solved over time. And you can say now, hypothetically, it might be solved, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. I just saw a chart. I just couldn't find the source, so I'm not sure if it's legit. But O1 still has a lot of, if you want to think about reasoning and the thinking that what you guys were just talking about.
Don't look at OpenAI for any of this in terms of guidance. Just to cut you off there,
Yeah.
I'm only looking at what I'm seeing out of Google's labs, and hallucinations have been solved with a thing called grounding, which Google's been pushing pretty hard with Notebook LM and stuff like that.
That's true, but we still have hallucinations because I use Google products a lot. I use Gemini a lot, and we still have some mismatching there. So it's not completely solved. From my experience, so what I do see, right? If you do not get your hands on AI, and if you do not start to mess with it, play with it, learn about it, educate yourself on it, you will probably have an issue in the future. In the future, but if you, as a human, now in my case, for example, my profession, what I've been doing the longest in my life, right, where I say I would have the most skill set, is mind body education, and I have been studying this for a very long time, and I yet have to see an AI replace me. There are a lot of tools out there that can help people get people to a certain place. It's just cheaper than maybe paying me and all that stuff, right? I do understand it. But me now working together with AI could create really a very powerful force. But I do not see the AI replacing me in my skill set. It's just not going to happen. I don't see that. So
fair.
so we'll see where it goes. But that's just how I see it. And I just can see it from my profession. I don't see AI anywhere close to my skill set and replacing me fully.
Keep in mind, this is like my specific profession. I can't imagine this happening. Mine will be the first to go, if any, right? Not
Yeah,
just
but
average
don't you
coders,
see yourself evolving to something else? Don't you see that there are certain other gaps in that new system, in the new era with AI? Because that's what I see. And if you work with AI, Jonathan, you will definitely see holes that need to be filled where a human in the loop is still needed.
Definitely, and I think that, but that's not my current profession or current profession. That means the profession has to evolve, which it has been doing over time. But like that will be, I'm saying whatever is current is not going to be the same, and whatever you think is going to be a job right now, whatever your utility is, think about how it can get replaced. And you need to be looking at the technologies that, not what OpenAI is saying is like hallucinating, but like problems that are actually solved somewhere else by somebody else. The fact that they're able to like have a one-to-one like lookup for medical type stuff in the medical LLMs, they're this is the SEAM technology I'm talking about that they're demoing at Mayo and stuff like that. Like these are solved issues elsewhere in research, and like it's a little bit limiting to think that because we're like hallucinations are like currently a thing, that they haven't been solved and the solved problem won't be implemented elsewhere.
Yeah, but
Um,
Jonathan, that could be. But so I've been studying this AlphaFold thing myself too. You know how important the scientist is in this whole equation? If you dive into that, and I've been researching all of this stuff because this is my daily thing. This is what I do every day, hours on end. And also the AlphaFold thing. We are going to need, so the thing is, so people that haven't been paying attention, people that have not been educating themselves properly in their fields of whatever they do, they will probably have an issue, but they have AI now to accelerate. So they can get up on par with others now with AI. But the thing is, we need more smart scientists now. This is something that a lot of people forget because there are a lot of steps that humans need to do, even with AlphaFold. You need people to analyze that. You need people to pass it on. You need people to organize certain things. AI cannot do everything. So I just don't want people to believe that there's absolutely no hope for them. I just want to give people, their confidence that if you have a skill set, you will make it. You just have to get on par with the technology today, and that'll make you unstoppable. You just have to adapt. But I do not see, maybe jobs that are there today won't be there tomorrow, but we humans will evolve if we, just go with the technology. I don't see it as dystopian, and I'm not saying that you said that, Jonathan, but there is still so much human effort still needed in all of this. I just want to put that out there.
Can
I
you
100%
explain? Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain AlphaFold for those of us who are not familiar with it? Sharon?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's like protein folding. It's just scientific research. So AlphaFold is a model, and you guys can look it up, and they do a lot of great stuff. Google is awesome. For me, Google is top because they have DeepMind. They do so much stuff. They have VO2, the best video model. So they are quite advanced with all of their research and so. But AlphaFold is basically a model that can come up with, I'm not a scientist or biologist or so. I can't really explain exactly what's going on there, but they can come up with new novel protein combinations or something like that. Maybe Jonathan can help me out. But
Gemini
also,
helps me out.
yeah, but
Deep learning to analyze vast amounts of protein data, accurately determining how they fold, significantly accelerating biological research and drug discovery by providing crucial insights into structures and interactions.
So, but there is still also a problem there. We still need long-term study on certain things. So if AI comes up with a new idea, okay, sounds good, sounds novel and wonderful, but we still need real-world testing. And I'm not saying that this is not good, that this is not going to work, that it will never happen, that AI can't come up with some combination that will do something for us, but there still needs a lot of human effort, and there needs a lot of testing to still happen in order to say if what the AI comes up with is really makes sense or not.
Right. So the thing that AlphaFold solved was the ability to be able to like discover the stuff and like verify like the existence of a particular folded something, right? That required computationally to do programmatically. Like it was just insane, right? To do this, right? In a way that wasn't predictive. So now we can look at like are there certain types of like proteins that would be target that we'd want to have to like solve a particular medical or biological issue. So we can ask that question almost, have this thing do some folding to see like what possible structures exist, and then like use that as a tool to see like this is now it narrows the scope of the possibilities into something that's more reasonable, and they can go to tests or trials far quicker than they could before, just because the second leg of that was super expensive, and it still takes a long time to get past clinical trials and whatnot. But the whole beginning half was also impossible to even get to that point, right? To even like identify molecules in the first place. That part was the rate limiting step before. So we've eliminated half of the rate limiting, the stages that don't require humans with this tool. But that's not the type of AI that's agentic and can do a lot of this planning and research for you. Take a look at what I posted in the pill. This is the co-scientists research that they put out. This came out last month, and this is an entire system that's it's designed to test hypotheses and hypothesis validation and stuff like that. So like it's the scientist is not going to exist, but like the fact that like if you're not like looking into the technologies that might be replacing components of your job, it's not going to be 100%. It's going to be like 50%, 85%, 95%, and as these are problems that are solved problems, right? Things that you do that could be facilitated by a machine in some way. If you're not either acknowledging the fact that these competencies are now being done by a machine in a 100% valid way, think about how maybe they're doing 95% of that competency in a 100% solvable way. Like if I'm only doing 5% of my job because the rest of it is tools facilitated, and it's better than me and not screwing up. You like to failure to acknowledge that and stay up to date is means that you're not able to evolve as fast as the AIs do.
Yeah.
The ability to adapt, as you said, is the most important thing. Um, and take for instance this, I worked at a Lyft driving just for like 2 months just to really give it up the old college try to see like what it's really about. And I wanted to be the best driver, and I was, and the most personable person, um, as I could be as a driver, and it was nice. But the way that they are using modeling to be able to determine how badly I want to get the next ride and just bin me into this system where I had zero agency, and they took away the ability for me to choose scheduled rides and stuff like that is so demoralizing. And once you realize like when that agency is gone, and it will disappear, promise me, like in particular industries, it is soul crushing. So like what's better than a Waymo car? Like these Waymos are amazing, dude. They're the best drivers on the road, and that doesn't have a driver at all. I aspired to be a Waymo as a driver, if that makes sense. I wanted to be that car, have a nice Jaguar, and drive perfectly. But that means that I wouldn't actually be in the loop at all. So, as a driver, what would be left is for somebody who wants to do this profession that's somehow better, or what is left of that profession, and it's the person-to-person interaction and caring and like being one-on-one with individuals. That aspect is like I think what we kind of have to focus on. Communities, being empathetic. You don't be empathetic with your tools. It's not a thing you should do. Don't let that perpetuate. I hate that. Because then we lose the humanness, right? If once we start loving tools more than we love like actual humans, I think that's when we really truly lose. But it's either focus on like aspects of your job that can be tool facilitated, and you can spend more time with people, really understanding them, and getting that human to human contact. Like helping people. I think like those are the places that we can really hopefully cling to more than anything. How can you find new ways to help people with these tools that we have access to? Not how is my current job going to get eliminated, but how can I use these tools to, I guess, facilitate care for others at a much easier scale or more cheaply or whatnot. I don't know.
No, Jonathan, I think you're really onto something. Someone I know who's 86 posted the other day that they're going back to work and they're starting up their PR agency, and that hit me like a ton of bricks. Very, amazing human being, sharp as a tack, just and. Yeah, so I went through and thought that I could be kind of helpful and tried to be helpful, and then I think that she's been more helpful to me. But yeah, I think we are going to have a lot of soul searching and trying to understand, what the world's going to look like. Fear is contagious. Anybody who's afraid, you stay away from them. Never a good idea. But observing with detachment, but being realistic about what you're seeing, I think has been served me. But it takes a while to get to that place. But yeah, this is, we're going to have a challenging time. But just as much as who is it? Scoble, Robert Scoble. He believes that we're just there's going to be new things that we never even thought of that we can, participate in, that we can build businesses with, that we can, and I've seen that happen already. So, it's part of me there. I read this book. I don't, and then we'll get to Hans, Jim, and then Kim. It's called Collapse. Gerald Diamond. It's a good book, and he studies all the major cultures that had huge population declines in a short period of time, and there was like 5 factors that it happened. And the one of the gnarliest is Easter Island with the big sculptures, and they got they were a fishing island. There was they couldn't easily gain access to the ocean because of the way the land went into the oceans, and they had boats, and they caught their fish off the boats, but they cut their last tree down, and within a short period of time, Captain Cook went there, and there was like 3,200 people, and they came back like 10 years later, and there was like 200 people. The point that I'm trying to make is that groups of people cannot think well, unfortunately. And there's a guy who was the leader of Japan who said we need to, categorize every tree and dock it and mark it because we're an island and we need these trees. And anybody who cuts down a tree, it's a capital offense. And he was draconian, and he had absolute rule. But to this day, there's beautiful forests in Japan, and you have Haiti that's on the same island as the Dominican Republic. Same kind of attitude in the Dominican Republic about their trees, but Haiti, they clear-cutted it, and it got rid of all the topsoil. So sometimes having kind of a benevolent leader creates a better outcome. Although I love, I'm a total believer in free speech and the market-based economy. But yeah, we're going to have to wrestle with some intense questions. But when you have like group consensus and there's, everyone's walking like lemons towards the cliff, I don't think the outcome's so good as opposed if you have someone who, or maybe a group of elders that says there's a cliff, stop walking. I don't know. But that's me just ranting.
Can I get in for real quick because I want to further this point? I spoke with a surgeon recently on Dragon Copilot and what that's going to do, and I was going to go on a rant about how I hate Microsoft so much because they just steal innovation and stifle it and put it behind their wall. But instead, his perspective was, and this is very interesting. It's Dragon Copilot is a tool from Microsoft that's supposed to accelerate workflows and get rid of all the meaning, like the really annoying data entry and stuff like that, right? That clinicians suffer all the time, right? It's supposed to be estimated like 30% plus improvement in efficiency in a clinic once you implement this tool. And there's been so much work on this, but it's been gated behind regulation and HIPAA and whatnot, and it's difficult to do. So they're doing it, right? And they're selling this as a service to hospitals. And I'm like, so how do you feel about this? To this surgeon, this neurosurgeon, and he says it's going to. You would think that it would free up time for the clinician to spend more time with the patient, which has been something that is increasingly going down in time, and clinicians are burning out and they're subject to these rigorous schedules where they're just patient after patient after patient, and the hospitals are booking them nonstop, and people can't get appointments if they miss them because they're so booked, and they have no time with the patient because they're doing so much data entry. They can't talk to them. They can't get to know them. They can't establish trust. They can't do the thing that, as somebody who goes through the, medicinal training programs wants to do, be a human who, another human comes to trust, to help solve their medical problems, which is a very human thing. And he says that instead of, this, now you can spend more time being a doctor, what's going to happen is they're just going to be booked more. So now they can do more work from the hospital's perspective. They can do more work, in quotes, in less time. So there's less time to spend with the patient, more time just going straight to what the templated output's supposed to be, and in and out. And what I'm seeing there is this is just like Lyft. That this is removing the agency of doctors to be able to choose the tools that they want because business is forcing them there to use this system. They didn't want to use this booking system before. Private practice and hospital care it's just very natural and kind of organic type of thing where it wasn't like output money. We need to be able to afford this stuff. We need to invest in technology that improves this efficiency. Let's get as much output as possible so that we can have a higher return. That's where we are now, and this tool is going to do the opposite of increased patient care, and that humanistic aspect that I mentioned. So when you say we shouldn't just like count on like, see the thing that's in front of us and just blindly follow and, go into it. Yes, these tools are good to adopt, but you have to really think about the impact. Who is going to be using these tools? Who's going to be impacted? And like really, like ultimately, what is this technology going to do to the the industry that you're in and the practice? It can't 100% be focused on money, 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 money. Like think about what Microsoft did. They just opened the door. They're like, hey, if you aren't using our cloud, we can have this tool to improve your efficiency. So now, like, there's a financial incentive to get into our Azure AD system. Have all these compliance stuff. Like, let's slap you with a fat bill, but it's gonna be worth it, okay? Because look at this efficiency that you're gonna have. Look at how efficient your doctors are going to be, and it's gonna be easily worth it when it comes to the price of doing all this stuff. They just like opened a hole into insurance companies to like funnel money from insurance companies directly into their pockets, in turn reducing patient care at like the human level, and not solving any of the systemic issues. And like, why does it take so long to enter all this data? How come insurance is so expensive and we are unable to find doctor's appointments, right? Like, how come the CEO got killed because people think that it's the insurance company's fault for like not handling insurance claims correctly. It's the blame is put in all the wrong places instead of solving actual issues. You have to think bigger than that. I don't know, it really kind of hurt me to hear that. It really tugged on my heart a little bit, as a doctor, to just not be able to do doctor stuff and have just watching these technologies take your job literally away. But it's not taking your job, it's somebody else is making a decision for you because they think it's better for their whatever business that they're running, not the field of medicine. So I just wanted to get those 2 cents out there. Jim, any comment on that?
I think, and I'll get to, I just think you're an important voice, Jonathan, based on your background and your compassion. I recommend you speak as much as you can. Jim, how are you doing?
Hi everybody. I'm usually a silent partner here because I'm out walking, but I've heard this conversation of AI is not going to eat the world, but yet the same conversation, I'll hear someone say, "Oh, hey, it's going to replace 80% of the work that you do, but everybody's going to stay employed." I just especially listening about the cloud infrastructure being pretty much automated at a very high level in 18 months. It's like, well, that was going to be my next lift. Where do I go next? It's just, sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but it just seems like for a lot of people, you're not going to be the top 1% of the top 1% and be able to keep up with all the changes just to stay relevant.
We had a conversation a couple weeks back, and candle makers were very. You have your mic open, Jim? Candle makers were very upset about the Industrial Revolution, and so I mean, people with horses and carriage. I always look. I always force myself to look. At the future with optimistic eyes, even if it's telling you got to stay optimistic against all reason, because the alternative has no future. But do you want to add on to that, or Jonathan, do you want to get to Jim's point?
Yeah. Okay.
I totally understand there's no more buggy whip makers arguments anymore. But I guess from my perspective is, it's changing so fast. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that and people were, recommending kind of getting into the cloud architecture. And then here today, we've got someone that's saying, hey, and I'm very good at this, but I'm going to be replaced in 18 months, possibly. Back then, the change of pace was much slower, right? if you want to talk drivers for cars and taxis and stuff, sure, they replaced the people that was horse-drawn buggies. But that whole industry didn't go to driverless cars in 5 years, right? So I understand staying hopeful and all that kind of stuff, but I just want to be able to find something that seems like a reasonably good guess to put my efforts into. So that's where I'm coming from.
Same, man. Same. But I mean, this is a pursuit because it's changing so quickly. I think that like aligning your perspective with something like what opportunity exists for you in the current market, I think almost like that's not. I don't think that's the right question to ask exactly. Either you're trying to solve a problem that hasn't yet been solved because you've identified issues like systemically or like in your current realm that could be improved. That's the way that I would approach it, right? Everybody has like I see the problems that I would solve, just knowing what I know in industry, and that's why I want to help people solve their problems with these tools. But like you yourself, just getting comfortable, learning how these tools can facilitate either helping others or helping some system that you're involved in improve or getting rid of all the annoying things that are annoying, not just at your job, but just generally speaking, identifying those, I guess, friction points, right? Things that are cumbersome and annoying. That's really like, that's what you should be looking towards for inspiration instead of, I don't want to sound like a doomer. I really don't. But as you said, facts are facts, right? Like if things are advancing this quickly, that is an eventuality that you will maybe not be as effective as a human being, that could be paid to do the work. But using the tools, being able to like Google stuff. Sorry to tout Google again, but figure out where those opportunities exist and apply these new tools to fix those processes. At least you're building something, right? You're contributing a solution that now exists with these tools that didn't exist before, and that's building. That's moving forward. And if that means you're not getting paid for it, there will be some sort of payment, right? You're advancing, the civilization to some extent, and that will eventually pay out in some way. At least that's that's the output that I'm seeing. I guess that's my vision. I don't know, guys. Don't be down on it, right? It's a tool. Like people don't know how to use drills anymore because somebody else can use drills. That's fine, but like go back and figure out how to use it so that you can go fix your own things at home. All the tools in the world are available to you on the internet now, and go out and learn them and use them every day. And that's the only way you're going to be able to see through this is to expose yourself to as much information as possible, and like really know how to navigate the complexity of it.
I agree with you completely. Kim, and then we'll go with Sanan.
While back, you were talking about prompting real briefly, and it kind of tied over into the job sphere, how, we're all going to work ourselves out of a job or not. And then which roles would still be around. Somebody mentioned enterprise sales and stuff like that. But with regards to the prompting, youth are using AI for creative outlets, but they're not being taught through, I guess, the teaching and library functions to talk to AI to request the expertise of a certain credentialed person, like the regulated employment tracks that we have. Most youth only recognize the 4 or 5 types of civil servants, and then they want to go do sports. And so the human component and the advisory function that teachers have time to spend with the students, class sizes and things like that, it all rolls over into then the union barking later on, because everyone is already tracked, and what they're wanting to change is not their personal circumstance, but the circumstance of an entire job that all of them hold. So how we care for workers and have a dissolution of this like work-life balance, and that like everybody's going to have the gig economy, and the translation of competency over to the ability to do something for someone else is such that we're all taught to go buy a drill and keep it in our garage and not talk to our neighbor. And so I don't know, AI can fix the world, but it is going to require a shared communication model of linguistical structure. You know what I'm saying? English kind of tends to be the global business language in a way, but with it not being that, these large language models and how they translate over intentions behind contracts and stuff is it's all going to tie back to who's competent to do what. And
Yes. Am I rugging or is Kim rugging?
I think Kim rugged. Are you there still, Kim? Well, Jonathan, do you want to address what she has said up to this point, and then we'll see if she gets back in?
Yes, I mean, she said it so eloquently. I don't really know how to react. No, that's perfect. I mean, I would say I almost wanted to cut in and talk about education because, like, if we're talking about impact of these tools more than anything, I don't really, I don't have children, so I don't know what they're being taught. I just know that the generation before me got wrecked completely by COVID, and that kind of like on it's the conventional way of learning. Is should be disrupted. If I had this technology when I was a kid and I was taught to prompt as like a core, like fundamental concept, as like a competency that I had as a child, I could ingest the world, dude. I could eat any amount of information so long as I was interested in it. Like Wikipedia holes where you just open all those new tabs, like that is completely different now. That it's a new way of like exploring data and learning things um, that are now accessible to us. So, I mean, in terms of impact, if you can teach other people, or if we can like maybe the education system itself, like and the tools and the uh, technologies that teachers are required or like should understand to be able to pass along to their students. I think teaching is a huge area, even if it's
the
just
issue is
parent-child
the
and like
smarter
learning those tools.
you're really super smart. You're super duper smart. So whatever your expertise is, you're top level in the little two or three max things that you do. I can tell. So we used to correlate pay intentionally to the smart people. If you're really smart, you go get the credentials, you stay in school a long time, you become a walking human AI module in a way. So now, since that's how we kind of did it, how can we do it to account for the equity and fairness and equality that is absent the capitalist structure without anyhow, I'm gonna go back to listener. I just wanted to prompt y'all to talk in that direction and then listen.
I I mean, I feel you. I mean, this is like giving the people who have no access to internet access to internet and a device to be able to interact, right? Like that's really the digital divide. And now it's not only accessibility to the internet, it's accessibility to all the information and teaching. This could be the best mentor, the tools that exist that you've ever had. And I don't think that everybody's had the experience I've had of loving to learn things, right? I imagine people who hate math because I also hate English, right? I absolutely hated English class, but that's that's a different story. I love to learn stuff, and I think that if it's forced into your head, in a way that doesn't make sense to you,
I have a knowledge
imagine
addiction
you don't,
also.
you're not prompt for what's up.
I said I have a knowledge addiction also, compatriot.
Yeah, but I don't think that's like I don't think people like get that growing up sometimes, and that could be due to their circumstances at home or just the way that information has been always like kind of off limits, or they're taught that they're dumb because they keep running up against a wall of just not being able to understand what's being taught. And that's not the teacher's fault necessarily. Teachers, they teach a whole room of people, right? They don't have the time or ability to easily translate that into something that can get as seamlessly as possible into the child's head. And when you
Absolutely.
have a great mentor, it's like the amount of like learning that happens in such a short period of time. I mentioned my that HPC internship, that I learned an insane amount of information in almost no time. And like if that could happen, if we could use tools to facilitate that to children to get them eager to just like be able to go out there and empower them to like, I want to know this. Boom, they can go get it. They can go learn it. They know how to ask a prompt, to present the information in a way that is easy to ingest. I think that like the next generation of children should be able to have that tool that most of us don't. Um,
We just have
still
to
have
require, in my
happen.
personal opinion,
Yeah.
career targets. If we just made if you're in public school, you have to have a career target and you have to know what potential jobs are out there other than a teacher, a fireman, and a policeman. I think that would do a huge amount of good. And then they could just discover AI in the same way that they discover underwater basket weaving or corn farming,
Yes.
because we don't require that.
Yeah, absolutely. Son's been keeping his hand up for the longest time. I just want to get him to get his question in, and
No, let him finish. I'll jump in.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kim.
Oh, Kim, are you done? I agree with you, by the way. I think that if we had a library of things to look through, instead of saying, I want to be an astronaut, that'd be sick. I didn't know what field I wanted to get into. In fact, I don't even know what field I wanted, like what role would apply after I lost my last job, because it didn't really have a technical role description. So being able to explore those and then set that as a target and all the things that you would want to learn, or the breadth of knowledge that you'd have to have, what you should learn in college, right? People talk about college not being worth anything. It's like I didn't know what I wanted in college to do, and I still didn't after I was done. Except I did know that big data was really cool, but I mean, I only knew that because I went to a hackathon. All right, and so like that shouldn't have to be the barrier to entry. There should be an easy way to discover this early on, so that you can start learning towards that target and getting real as much experience as possible. Plan that out, and make that the thing you want to actually do. I 100% agree with that.
Excellent. Sonnen, you have a question?
Hey, John, Andy, Tech in School, Jonathan, Drew, Sharon, I think, Jim, Ronald, Justin, and everybody else. Cool. I just want to drop few comments on what was previous said. So the first thing, AI is not going to replace anyone. It is going to be same thing like Industrial Revolution. You will have the green button to start and red button to stop. And that's it. About LLM thinking, don't anyone take me wrong, but I think that's the most ridiculous thought I've ever heard. Here is why. I've seen recently posts about US supremacy and all of it, OpenAI, Gemini, all of that bullshit. And then there is a bottle with detachable cap. While AI is letting people without the jobs in the US, that detachable cap on a bottle in Europe keeps one guy at his work. And comparing the average American to average European, it's uncomparable in a lifestyle, in a happiness and everything. And I can say this, I've spent half of my life in the US, half of my life in Europe. And that AI shit and crap is literally hype that scares out people. So to continue on this AI thinking, I'm doing due diligence like for 2 weeks. So this morning I woke up like very, very early to prompt my agents and everything and blah, 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 blah. I ended up 3 hours doing this stuff with an AI and agents and everything. It didn't even get close to where I got with all of the preparations and setting up and preparing myself for the negotiations. So in the 3 hours, I did entire job in sorting the documentation and everything in 47 minutes exactly. So if I need to prompt that thinking thing to come up with even better results doing on my own, I really don't need that. And I'm talking about my eyes, I'm talking about the Gemini and the GPT. Healthcare is way much complex than we think. I don't know, guys, if you have thought of or heard of. Recently, I've mentioned Hitachi Vantara, which literally kicked out of the business GE. So we have something else that comes into the hospitals and doctors. It doesn't matter who they are. I've met Dr. Pacifico, who did surgery to my wife, which is the most prominent ever neurosurgeon on the planet. He's just employee there. He earns $700,000 a year, but he's just employee there because hospitals are run by the support operation organizations,
Yes.
which means If you want to buy CT, you need to cash out 250, 300, and then plus on the equipment and additionals or add-ons that comes with the device itself, it goes easily $500,000. For MRI, even higher. It can go like start 500 and then like hit you up 3 mil like easy. So what they are doing, because of the very, very enslaved work in the hospitals, they are partnering on creating the private practices and then sending you there because there is so many difficulties and stuff and so on. So it's one entire scheme. And all of the data, everything, no one in healthcare cares about it, because if that's so much important, let's say in data science, everyone interested in this branch will go to the John Hopkins, not to the Stanford and MIT, because John Hopkins is the best existing, and it's for last 10, 15 years data science program on a planet. Like no one compares to them. I do like AI, but I think we are overhyping. And another thing I mentioned the other day, here on Twitter, yes, we are ahead of some people, but also Twitter is very small. And again, all of us that are working with this in AI, whatever we are building, whatever else, if we compare ourselves to the regular business out there, bakery, coffee shop, or anything, how much time and effort we put and energy into what we are building compared to them and trying to level, we are way behind them. So I do like all of the narrative, everything that's being said, but I would also appreciate a realism of everything being said. Same thing happened, for example, with the NFTs, and I'm choosing this example on particular Christie's. They fractionalized the actual art into the NFTs. Everyone were running after these monkeys and that bullshit, but no one were running after those which are actual value. The same thing will happen with all of this, what we are doing with an AI. Of course, Google, I'm like all of the Google, my Frankfurt valuation business is entirely built on Google and Google Gemini and everything. Even we run our own model for valuation, it still is supported by the Gemini. I think the other day I said they will become everything, and that's, maybe I'm super biased, but that's how I see them. But also, don't be, like let us not be afraid. Like AI is not big thing, to be honest. And what we think about future and everything, to me sounds it's like same like, oh, we will be shaking hands and having coffee with the aliens in 20 years. Who cares? Maybe tomorrow we will not exist anymore. So what we have today. And last thing on this sex, that's something I discussed with a very close group of people. There's so many developers, there's so many experts, there's so many everything. Why the fuck everyone are broke on this sex? If they're building everything, if everything is cool, if everything is so amazing, if everything is so powerful, is like, let's strip the hype and be who really we are. So this is nothing negative. I'm just like pointing out thoughts because of many contextualities we are putting into everything, trying to like, I don't know. Yeah, this is amazing and fantastic stuff, Jonathan. I like what you put earlier. And thank you, John. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone. Fantastic space as always.
Thank you, Sonnen.
Right.
Uh,
He's right. I mean, the last part, he's right. I mean, this is extreme. I mean, that's why this is this space and this is happening on Twitter. This type of talk shouldn't happen outside of Twitter or this type of space. I mean, this is where you go to find the latest to date AI news. Like nobody else knows this stuff, right? And that's why we're here. So this is just a matter of if hypothetically these technologies, which we see right now, are to propagate and what the capabilities are, propagate to the world, what would that impact look like? And I guess the reason from my lens and knowing just the capabilities of the systems that exist now and how they're like the stuff that's unreleased at Google is being researched, right? That's coming out, how that will like impact people in the future. If you're worried about some of your functionality being taken away. As I said, it's not going to go 100% away, but some of it might, right? That 80% might go away. You mentioned, so I'm going to go like down the list of the 3 things that I heard that I wanted to discuss. You said it took you 3 hours to organize the documents with Gemini through prompting. That sounds like you need a better tool to do that. That to make it organized in a way that you would like. And that comes down to it has to be better prompted to organize the documents, or the system, like maybe Gemini is not the actual thing you need for document organization. But if you're able to identify the process in which you could take an arbitrary set of documents and come out with an organization of documents that you prefer, you no longer have to do that anymore, in theory, right? It's unless the problem scope is too big for it to be solved. You have to take a smaller chunk and solve that little bit to make it a little bit make it repeatable. That's all AI is doing is in theory making repeatable processes, contextualizing them, having reliable inputs and outputs, and defining what it is you want out of it. So I mean that technology isn't here yet, but there was a paper written recently that it's difficult for us to figure out what we want until we can actually write it down in a very concise, articulate way that can be ingested with LLMs. It's very it's like looking at yourself in the mirror, kind of. You don't really know that you're not saying something as clearly as it needs to be said until you get an answer back that's like, that's not what I wanted. I mean, if the paper came out, I could post it. Like the back and forth to clarify your prompt, to narrow down exactly what it is, what you want the intent of this outcome to be, or process identification. Like this is the barrier to making LLMs like super powerful. But I hear you. It's a pain in the ass, and it didn't work for you instantaneously, and that's fine for now. But like you haven't found it useful in that use case, and that's totally fine. It's not going to replace that, and that's chill. Healthcare data. We're on healthcare data. People do care about healthcare data. I worked at a radiology company where they're doing imaging research, and the barrier here is that because it's all isolated in silos and not standardized in some fashion, there's no real agreement, or there hadn't really been much of an agreement on how we're able to create models that are accurate enough to simplify the radiological workflow with like a level of confidence that's good. How do you de-anonymize all this data? How do you ingest it in one place and do big scale analytics and data science on it? And it's all siloed into hospitals. I mean, not so much anymore, but they've had PACS systems that have had all of these scans locked behind closed doors on-prem for so many years. Since people have been dreaming of this since 1998 or something like that, according to Rob. I don't know if he's in here. It's been a dream to be able to analyze and actually make models of disease identification and stuff like that. So yes, people do care about it, and this data is gold to those who want to lock it behind closed doors. So I mean, of course, I don't know what Hitachi's doing in particular, but it seems like they have their own cloud. Azure has their own cloud, where you can access the data in a private way, but that's gatekept by, as I said, regulation and de-identifying data, and also the digital transformation aspect, getting the data into the cloud. Because that exact mentality, people don't care. Maybe hospitals can't monetize it. There's no financial benefit in sharing that data and having that infrastructure to do it securely if you're not a research hospital, right? It's not important. But having a model that's universally applicable to all types of machines and having zero bias, you can only do that if you have all of the data from all the different places. Otherwise you have a biased model that's not universally applicable. So that's why this technology hasn't really evolved that much, and it's unfortunate that there's no Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins, as you said, these are research facilities. Those are individual hospitals, and they can't pay other hospitals to onboard onto their cloud so they can do data science, right? That's not the business of it. Makes no sense. But the public good that can come from it is massive. Back to what doctors want to do. They want to help patients get better and get better tools to do that. I heard that because of surgery procedures, they're not recorded and stored in a data set that can be labeled and annotated for future training because of liability for being sued, if something goes wrong during a procedure. So think about what that means when you train a model and it can never go wrong if you even had that training data set. That's like throwing that data away is the worst thing that has ever happened to medicine. The fact that we're like not able to actually record what went wrong in a procedure like that, because how are you supposed to like train on what's not good versus what is good, or be able to have any sort of predictive function that says this is what is about to go wrong last time. This is a stupid way of explaining it, but like what not to do. This is when Tesla's crash into stuff that was unexpected that they've been unable to simulate, and not capturing that data so it happens again. There's huge value in this data, but it's locked behind getting sued and like not being able to de-identify the information and like share it in a way that isn't going to make the surgeon responsible in some way. Right, like there's so much value that can be unlocked from this, but regulation and business and insurance companies and whatnot are kind of gatekeeping all of the public good that can come from it. So I wouldn't say there's no value in healthcare data. There's so much value. It's totally locked down, and that hopefully there's some incentive to change that, but yeah, we'll see. And also comparing AI to NFTs, I think that in terms of the concepts that we're talking about today, I hear you when it sounds like that, right? When people use AI all over the place, people are like, oh, it's sentient, oh, it hallucinates, oh, blah, blah, it's just like all the hype. I got you. But as a blockchain dude who was like very interested in the technological like functionality that is now available with a non-fungible entity in a database, which is all this is. That's a cool building block. That's a Lego block, dude. Like that's what that was. And then people ran with it because they found money in it. And then now it's just a shitcoin, right? That's all it became. Is nobody found a good use for NFTs because they couldn't connect to the real world in like a meaningful way. So I mean, it's good technologies are stomped on by public hype all the time, and they're mischaracterized because of a lack of understanding of what what core like things it can actually unlock. So like this is also healthcare data. Like it's it would be done here if people mattered. Um, I got you. It makes sense. But yeah, that's my take on it. Like, if what good can AI do that NFTs can't? Like, what are the larger horizon, moonshot ideas of a future where these technologies can improve us in some way to benefit society as a whole? Yeah, that's my 10 cents.
So Jonathan, I'm gonna get to Shannon. Just I just want since the beginning of time, the whatever is on the horizon that can threaten people, has been there. And I might be the oldest person in this room. I would hear stuff. Not everybody saw the world, 25, 30 years ago enough to understand it. And it was different. And we've been in kind of this this artificially intelligent, like the way information is being hoisted onto people is not how it's been for 100,000 years, or however long hominids have been around. This is different, and so the distortions can happen that where you believe in something that is not true, but you can't get any verification that it's not true because everywhere you turn to it says that it is. And so I think this is now a time where people that are maybe under 40 or something, or 30 or their late 30s need to kind of get to wisdom of some people who've been around a bit longer, to get the anxiety and the concerns down to something that might be more realistic, because humans are pretty inefficient. And even if they do have something that can give them the answer to all things, the idea that it's going to be implemented in any quick way, or in any humans can. One of the wonderful things is that they're not too efficient. I think that it's best. Like my idea of a perfect government is something that can't function. Most people don't like that idea, but I think that that's probably the best thing for everybody. So I'm sorry to go on that rant, son, and please.
No, no, all good, John. Maybe Jonathan, you didn't catch the entire scope, or I didn't express myself properly with the prompting for 3 hours. But I must say this: if your tool requires me to become an engineer just to use it, it's completely useless. Another problem
I
with
see.
all of the LLMs is the commercialization. So we will have plenty of softwares and SaaS, which again requires you to really get into the steep learning curve to figure it out and start using it and to master it, and all of these programs adapting. So I was building a due diligence project, and I literally put into 3 different models, not only the Gemini. So Gemini, ChatGPT, and our own agents. And by the way, I'm building an AI. I'm not prompting stuff, and I'm not developer. My company does this. Everything I taught, every note I did have, I'm talking about the document with 137 pages. And I wanted to compare how I'm preparing myself for this negotiation versus what these models are going to tell me. I just lost 3 hours. That's all. And this connects to the thing that I asked the other day, the entire space, when we did have discussion. What efficiency have you seen from the AI? Not particularly you, like everyone, and how it can be turned into any sort of the value. It doesn't have to be necessarily monetization. Everyone responded the same thing I said. If I need to become an engineer to use your tool, it's completely useless. And yes, about the healthcare data, people are giving up because they see no solution. That's why they don't care. But then, in terms of the medical imaging, there is one startup I pushed, which is related to the Cleveland Clinic. It's in Montgomery, Alabama, Pathogramma, where AI interprets imagery, and it's highly accurate, and it's really amazing. They want to, it's installed. They want to push it to public use for few cents, few dollars. You can upload the imagery and your images, and then it will interpret. So you don't need to wait for the pathologist to run all of this stuff, and this also decreases the cost of hiring pathologists or visiting pathologists, and so on and so on. But
Love it.
still, with all of the complexities, people are just giving up, and that's the sad thing that is not regulated. For example, I've been at UT Austin medical school, where Dell donated insane technology, insane technology. And what they decided to do with this is to push through the privacy policy and consent. So when people comes in, they're enabling the clinic, the research, to use their data and to produce stuff. But this is still very rare stuff, because each time you get in, you need to sign paper, or if you don't, then data is pretty much lost, But unfortunately, that's something I'm seeing it being improving, but people are losing faith and they're just giving up. And that's why they're giving up on data.
Can I address the 3 points, John?
Of course, yes.
I guess
Yeah.
2 points. So first one, if you have to be an engineer to use the tool, then it's useless. I disagree. As an engineer, that's required to use tools, just flat out. It's not the tool for you. So there should be an engineer that does the work for you. That's this is the problem solving thing. I would love to see like what your actual like the scope of what you're trying to do is, so that I would wonder like how it could be improved. Using the tools that I have access to, or some integrator, right? I hear you, and it's frustrating, and I guess, but like it's inherently not your job to have to do that purely, right? That's your job is to have a like an end-to-end solution like that solves your problem without you having to engineer it yourself. That's totally fair. That's totally fair. However, the facilitating mechanism here is that these tools help you build your own tools. If you want it to go down that route if possible, right? Like, so without really knowing exactly what it is that you're trying to do, getting that enough information to solve your problem with my tools, and know, like, understand whatever systems you're using or interact with them or interface with them programmatically. I wouldn't have to be an engineer of that system to know how to do that necessarily, so long as there's documentation that lets me interface with that. So like that wasn't possible before, and that's what AI would allow me to do. So that could be potentially a problem that would be solved that you have. I mean, somebody could do that work, which is awesome. So instead of your 3 hours, maybe we can narrow that down to however long of an input would be required, like, to like chunk it into something that could be repeatable and helpful for you. For your due diligence. I don't know what that looks like on a case by case basis, but this is a very an interesting area. I would love to hear more about it. To be honest with you, I don't. I really am actually curious about it. But people have given up on healthcare data because of regulation and the inability to like get access to data sets at scale. It's not beholden to like one hospital. Right? It's the healthcare data realm. It's not following the same paradigm that big data has offered to the rest of the world. Only recently has there been even a database that's like somewhat universally recognized and like adopted for transmission of healthcare records to like just healthcare records, because every single information system that was built into a hospital, they were all different. So like there had to be created a unifying data model, if you will, that's extensible to like the unique needs of hospitals, and that can evolve over time, such that you know data that gets ingested into this thing, if you were to go to the cloud, is interoperable with any other system. And you can't do that's why companies like Epic exist, because they have their own database of stuff. They don't necessarily run on the Fire database, but they're interoperable with it. Uh, they solve that problem. They sold it to everybody, and they use one database for everything. But like that's not interoperability. That's gatekeep behind one company. Once again, data silos are the thing that's preventing AI, or like being able to use AI tooling or modeling techniques to help the world or to do any good. So it's not that they've given up on data. It's a matter of why haven't we pushed people to say, you are contributing towards, solving something, right, with your imagery. We're not going to use it for bad. There's a certain fear of giving away your data because you think it's yours for some reason. It's like what data is Facebook keeping from me? What data is Google taking from me? Blah blah. They have it. It's like you're using the internet for free, and they're taking the analytics and they're using it to be able to have people market you ads in a platform that is non-obstructive and it's not gatekeep. They're giving you access to a function, and they're taking something that didn't exist for free that you're giving them, like as part of like usage, and they're able to monetize it out of nothing. That's You don't have to click the ads, but you still get Google search and Gmail for free. Why is that such a problem? You're not paying to play. You're paying nothing to use tools. So there's the fear mongering that's built into this and baked into like, oh my god, my privacy data for my healthcare information is being stolen and used, or maybe like if you submit it for research, it's already being done. If like that was your concern, if you want to go the conspiratorial route, which I mean I gather Epic is probably doing, but they don't have to tell you because it's not transparent. Like who knows, right? Like it could be Cambridge Analytica up in here. Literally, who knows? I'm not saying they do, but I'm saying because it's a black box, you don't know, and your concern should be like, should I say yes to like advancing healthcare and like AI imaging for radiology, or should I say absolutely no, even though they could be doing this anyway behind your back and like maybe not advancing the healthcare or the science behind this, right? I don't like that, but yeah, don't you think that there should be some sort of push towards hey, like as a country that is on the forefront of technology, we should just get it done. Like let's get it done. Hospitals, time to like stop fussing around. Just put all your data together so that we have one data set for everybody to do AI on, because this is for the public good of medicine. Medicine has always been good. It's been, at least that's been the goal, right, for public health. um I don't see why that's a barrier to entry, but it's so, and these are the problems that I think are interesting and fascinating. How do you solve those problems? Because you can't solve that with AI. I don't know if you can solve it with money. Maybe you need enough money to like pay people to get into one unified platform. But yeah, I mean, that's a different consideration altogether.
Well, when you come into medicine and health, there's a lot of variations on that. There's the Western medicines and the Eastern medicines, and all kinds of various ways to heal yourself. And I think that a lot of the modern stuff has been proven that it's maybe isn't the greatest, but we'll see with that. Drew, and no ill will to modern medicine. That's just my take on it. Drew, you have a question?
Yes. So it's first off, it's great to speak with everybody and to hear some familiar faces sharing some unique perspectives. Thank you for hosting this, and Jonathan for answering questions, and Sandon, having spoken with you recently also. Sort of a brief context setting, and then a question, Jonathan. And I think the best analogy is using medical records, or using the medical industry, I think as a proxy here. And Kim had mentioned it beforehand in talking about the nudge towards labor and working. And so my passion project is actually trying to figure out how do we decouple monetary value from labor. And I'm very much so leaning into how do we actually replace work rather than optimize work. I mean, it sort of seems like the question of our time is if we have something sufficiently intelligent enough to work for us, and if we could all come together and just make it work for us, then why not do that? But in reasoning, well, how do we actually make this happen? How do we make this practical? Using the healthcare analysis of, man, I wish I wish we would have tracked and scrutinized and KPI'd every ounce of surgical data, medical data, healthcare data. There is some data that does exist that I actually think is quite significant in this question. How do you ultimately decouple humans from labor? And it's funny when you think about it, and you contextualize it with Westworld. Haven't we been sending emails for 20 years, if not more than that? I mean, and if these companies own their data, what is to stop, every major corporation from, doing a vault deep dive, running the analysis on every email, every communication that their employees sent, and trying to create some sort of what is the perfect example of an administrative assistant, or who is the perfect copywriter, or what is the perfect software that was written, like whatever it is. All you have to do is simply just look in. I mean, the company I just had 5 years of emails. That was I think it was like 60,000 something emails. It was crazy amounts of data. And this is actually my personal exercise now of thinking like, okay, how do I go through my inbox and deconstruct my thought process given the context of those circumstances throughout my 5 years, and to try to like reverse engineer my thinking process, how I wrote contracts, how I wrote proposals, how I did things. Now I'm just one person with access to off-the-shelf AI. Why can't IBM take every one of their hundreds of thousands of employees and terabytes of emails and deconstruct what is the perfect data scientist, what is the perfect programmer? And what's crazy is that, and I'll conclude with this because I'd be curious from like how would you go about this question, but to sort of play off of what you guys were saying too about, spending 3 hours in a large language model. It happens to me all of the time, where I'll go into it and I'll start a conversation or I'll start a chain of thought with a specific output, and then I'll arrive at 3 hours of non-productive exercise. And what it is it's two phenomena. The first one is having built enough WordPress websites. And the joke was you can always tell a client to go to ThemeForest and download a WordPress website, but good luck building it, because you saw it when it was perfectly designed. All the copy was there, all the images were there, you're not really building anything. You're trying to fill in the blanks, but what you bought the dream, but you didn't buy the tools to get you to that dream. You didn't buy the copy, the pages, the sitemap, the know-how, which is so funny. And the second part is that AI sort of presents for us. And if you get stuck for 3 hours in something like me, it's because it's 3 hours of like dreaming, exploration. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I could even ask a question this way. I didn't realize there were answers that were even in this vector of possible answers. So it's so much more. We're dreaming, we're exploring, we're concepting. We're able to ask ourselves questions like, if there are only 800 different jobs, why don't we just pick one and abolish it? Why don't we spend the next 5 years decoupling labor? And why don't we use 20 years of our inbox to actually just come together and do this for us? I mean, isn't that the data that we would need? And so, Jonathan, the question is, isn't like, if you have a sufficient enough number of inboxes from a particular type of company, how do you go about analyzing that data and constructing the perfect employees with the assets they have available? And then what happens if you get 15 different companies that roll that together? I mean, we have the data in front of us to decouple us from labor. We lack the will or the creativity or the UBI plan afterwards to do it. Thank you for your time.
Ooh, dangerous question. Dangerous question. So this goes along the lines of like, first I ask, do we want this? Or is this something that would be a cool technology that would immediately be then sold as a service that would make businesses that don't use it not competitive? So I'm saying this through the lens of, if one were to possess such a data set, because let's just say 80% of the world and enterprise runs on this company's infrastructure, how would that entity then be able to model businesses at a holistic level, not just at a per enterprise level or per company level, but across all of these simultaneously, to identify what is the most high functioning, organizational structure functionally, between business units and whatnot, and what is the ideal way to get towards that level, right? So I'm imagining, business operations and organization as a as a as a service. That's what that ultimately is, right? You have a product, you identify, your business value, what its I guess inputs and outputs are, like as a whole. And if you can have an organization that, and as minimally as possible, hires people to perform the functions that can't be, performed with uh, you know I guess modeling and functional services, right? Like, it's just it's a big org chart that's been optimized across all businesses. So if you don't pay for the service, that makes you more, I guess, competitive, because now another company that does exactly the same thing that you're doing pays for this service and doesn't have to hire 80% of their staff because it's organized properly and very efficient. How many businesses do you know they're like, that's how we lose all of our jobs right there. That's the worst possible scenario we could ever have, if you guys are worried about losing jobs. And you're right, the data is there. And you're right, there's what's stopping a company from potentially doing something like that, especially if that would further solidify their place as the one place where business is done. And in an AI era, that's the most terrifying potential future I've ever seen in my life. Um,
May I?
but it's also the coolest one, right? Like, because modeling a business in terms of its organizational structure, like, and the inputs and outputs, and what technologies that you should work on, and then what the output might look like, and just determining the expense of, like, even researching and planning that out. All of this is so cool. And you only see it in like high level business consulting when they go out and do like Six Sigma process analytics and just modeling it all out, right? But if you could like facilitate that modeling process and be able to get that entity relationship model of your entire business into code effectively, then it can be optimized. And if you can make that happen at a large scale, make it very easy to onboard companies, like, here's your analysis of your whole company and like all of this, right? Now, then you can optimize it, and it's just a math problem. But it also lets you find the gaps and remove the fat. So programmatically speaking, so that's like, what company wouldn't buy that tool? you buy that tool because you want to stay lean, and you stay within that. You're forced to use that tool to remain lean, and you're forced to you remove all the jobs, you remove all the functionality, you dehumanize any of the processes, which I guess in business don't necessarily need to be human, but like that's kind of a scary future. And I don't think that we're very far away from doing that. I think that it's definitely possible with the Microsoft could do this right now. um, Microsoft hasn't really been. I mean, they could do it right now. I don't think it seems totally feasible to do that.
It, if I
Why would they
could,
let any other industry come in and do it?
if I could briefly just counter your not even counter, agree, it is terrifying, but rather it should be open source and it should be publicly available. And to me, it's the greater the less of two evils is. It's not a quite like I don't think any of us here disagree that there is an eventuality, something somewhere close to this. The question is, or at least my assertion is that creating it and creating a time frame and all working together at least removes some uncertainty related to it. And so it's like knowing that there's an asteroid coming and knowing that there's a date, right? And you can shoot a rocket in space to try to get the thing out of there, rather than sort of generally knowing that an asteroid may be arriving in the next amount of time. Creating some certainty by doing this on purpose.
I just want to steer the conversation a little bit, just in the sense that, the possibility that Elon Musk is going to bring us to Mars in our lifetimes is maybe pretty big. Now, the human experience has never experienced being multiplanetary, at least not in this iteration of society. Maybe there were ancient civilizations that did that, who knows? But we never know what the future brings. And so to be so definitive, I mean, if there's companies that create all of the workforce of the human race, or whatever's what the workforce is now, then who are they going to sell to? Who's going to buy that? I mean, who's going to be able, they can't put themselves out of existence by making sure that they're the only ones that have productivity on the planet. I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on. So I think that if we bring it back down to like what Ross is very good at this from Tech and Schools, what's going on today, And so, yes, there's a lot of changes moving faster than anybody can think. But one of the points that Shannon was making is that, people with experience and understanding about certain subjects, an LLM has no experience of being alive. It has no experience of being a parent. It has no experience of being a child. It has no experience of being a Christian or a Muslim or this, that, or the other thing. These are all things that humans have, and to put on an LLM that they are going to be able to do certain things that we can do. When somebody who has a lot of experience and they're negotiating, they understand human nature, they've been through X, Y, and Z that's made them into a shark or somebody who really can excel at a specific thing. To think that an LLM is going to put all that together is not realistic. And so, yes, Jonathan, you can create models for certain things, but there are blind spots within AI. And I've seen it, and I don't, and to believe that these blind spots are going to be overcome through engineering, I don't see that happening.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear what
Hey,
you're saying.
John, sorry for interrupting. Thank you. That's exactly what I was referring to. 3 hours testing the
You don't
three
need what I
different
just
models
to describe.
versus
That's what I'm saying.
the actual thing. Hey,
This
sorry
is
for interrupting.
you do not need AI to describe the business optimization that I just described. This is being done without AI. This is being done manually when enterprises are like, how can we further optimize our efficiency? And then they hire a consultant to come in and actually model the entire business in a format that is optimizable, right? Identifying processes, identifying workflows, identifying value chains, inputs and outputs, where the fat can be cut. And that costs a lot of money right now. All I'm saying is that a facilitating mechanism to allow any company to be able to get modeled as this in this format, such that basic business process optimizations could even occur. That facilitating mechanism is going to be like, consulting, that you have to ask a lot of questions, and I'd like see how all the flows actually exist, right? You have people with expertise come in to do that, but they know what the right questions to ask are. You can automate a lot of that process or make it a lot easier to get into that format with AI and just being able to like programmatically interact with like language and people. That's all I'm saying. This like nothing I'm saying exists outside of the realm of like reality, because it already is happening now, but it just costs a lot of money to do so and a lot of time and people. And it's the financial like the reason you would do it is because it's so broken, your enterprise is so broken that it's worth having a team come in and paying them all this money to have it modeled in such a way, right? Or it's so big that it can't be managed and it needs this kind of like planning step so that you can really see what different things can be tweaked organizationally speaking. Because once again, businesses are not modeled in this way ever. They're just businesses. They're not modeled as programs with an architecture. Let's take it back to Google and like having a defined architecture in terms of like containers, flows, and having all of these things as code. You know what I mean? Like this. I'm not trying to say this is a doomer thing, right? And like I think that we did get to that point, and I'm sorry I kind of let it go there, but to put it in perspective, this is already happening, and it's a service that you pay for as a company. So like, who was speaking before? Is it Drew? Yeah, Drew. So to your point, yeah, it should be open source. I mean, like that's why this is the typical Google push: is the rising tides raise all boats. See, what is it? Making the technology available to businesses to come in and have the capability of selling the software for like good, instead of having one company be able to do it themselves and be like a monopoly that is the only company that's able to offer this technology because of vendor lock-in. Vendor lock-in and data silos are the thing that prevents all good things from happening. Google is the company that is inventing technologies and researching the stuff to build the foundation such that it's a level playing field for everybody, including themselves, to operate on. That's where I'm going with this. I don't know how much business they're into, but they don't really capture much of the market at all when it comes to this. So yeah, no, let's not get into doomer stuff. Ideally, we could get back to focusing on Google related things if possible.
Excellent. It is getting close to the end of the 3-hour mark, so we're going to close up in a bit. But I see that Ghost is here. You got your hand up, and then also Anna. Anna had her hand up before. I don't know, Shannon, if you want to finish what you were saying, then we'll go to Anna and then Ghost.
No, I was just referring what you explained earlier, and the entire narrative was about it being able to think. That's all. You nailed it. Thanks for help.
Got it. And yeah, and the experience, knowledge is one thing, applied knowledge, and then you have experience. And these LLMs, that they're encapsulated into a desktop or a phone. I mean, maybe when they get involved in robots, and robots have a lot more sensors. They're still until you're human, you're going to have blind spots, and I don't see how they're going to overcome that. And there's a lot of nuances in life, and so businesses buy rote things, emails, responses, things like that. But still, there's another level of existence that everyone's got to acknowledge. If you ever been in a let's say at a concert or in a park, and all of a sudden you turn around because you get a sense, and somebody's staring at you, and you look them dead in the eye, and you're like, things like that happen all the time. You're thinking of somebody, all of a sudden you get a phone call. You've got a problem in your head, and all of a sudden you get what they call divine inspiration or what have you. These things, I mean, that's consciousness, and consciousness is not going to occur within an LLM ever. there might be mimics of it, which people perceive to be that, but I think that there's a certain element that the human has that is not going to be replaceable. But that's me. It might be wishful thinking. I don't know. But there are intangibles that are, that where there's these things might all of a sudden, people that have certain psychic strange abilities might be the Ubers. In the past the oracles were turned to, and there would always be the Merlin the magician or the astrologist in the king's court, and they were put, go back to Egypt and stuff like this. These people were given a high place within any great government or what have you. And maybe that's going to be where we're going, because these LLMs, I do not think will be able to come up with certain maybe esoteric or otherworldly experiences where they transfer knowledge to somebody who's, an important person within that society. I don't know. But I think that we can't assume that we are going to guess what's going to happen in the future. That's the point I guess I'm getting to. So Anna and then Ghost.
Hi guys, thanks for the conversation. It's been amazing so far. I just wanted to jump in and talk about creativity. And John, you actually just nailed it there in regards to consciousness and connecting to otherworldly. However, these ideas hit us, and also the way that we're currently training AI is not the way how I'm currently training my AI. So I'm forcing my AI to be creative. And what I've actually done is said, no, you're not allowed to use any outside information anymore. You are only allowed to use my information. So math models I've designed, programs I've designed, and then take those models only and come out with the answers. So and then I got a response the other day from my AI and said, you're not actually doing this normal. This is not normal. You're not using the program how other people use it. I said, no, exactly. I want to use it how I want to use it. So I'm forcing it to be creative. And I'm just wondering, John, how's Google doing that now? And are they going to be integrating that? Because it's definitely a more effective way of just recursive memory. And because I'm finding it that I'm breaking through a lot of different things right now that I wouldn't have been able to if I had just been using historical based knowledge without my creativity jumping in there, my consciousness jumping in there and saying, hey, look, what about this idea?
Okay, I got you on this one. So I don't know what you mean by training your model or what system you're using, but to put it in context of what training looks like at a like back to like what Vertex AI does, having an MLOps platform, that's what model training is. When you talk to like these LLMs, like you're talking not to an LLM, you're talking to ChatGPT, you're talking to Claude, you're talking to a system that's hosting one of these models, and they have a lot of stuff that's happening in front of an LLM. You're not training it, you're giving it more data. The model isn't necessarily being like trained on your information. You're just adding context that's being processed in some way in the back end through like one of the many techniques that we never got into to interpret what you're saying. And I'd also like to dispel the idea of like you can't watch somebody else, another human think. Like the concept of thinking is a purely human concept because it was to explain us, right? And our thoughts. And because we can't actually know that one another is thinking, we can't see what other people's thoughts are. There's no way we could see what a dog is thinking, and we can't see what a machine is thinking. So like, yeah, no, they're not thinking in the same traditional sense, but it can be emulated in certain ways, which is why they call it thinking, in quotation marks, right? It's not the same thing. And when you tell your model to do something, like what these systems are doing is it's a predictive model that is trying to figure out what is the best thing to say next based on the text that's happened before it, whatever it's front loaded with. It's not listening to you. It's predicting the next set of words. That's all it's doing. So when you say like you can only like work on within this set of information, we talked about hallucinations and whatnot. Because you're giving a command like that, it doesn't necessitate the output is actually going to follow that what your command. It doesn't mean it's actually you have a 100% certainty it's doing what you're saying it's doing. So I mean, like at least not at the ChatGPT level. There's no way to prove that. And these are probabilistic models. So like let's dispel that first. How is Google like working on this? I posted something in the doodly doo about how they're doing research with the co-scientists and hypothesis generation, and you know, like that's the start, right? If you want to read that, we can. That's we have, what, 8 minutes left. That's a good place to start. The that's it's another idea is that no thought that's ever been thought could ever be or no new concepts or thinking can ever occur within these machines, and that's been proven false already. So like a hypothesis was generated that we haven't had before as the human species, and it was tested and proven to be true. Like that's science. So that's also not the case, right? The creativity, if you want to describe it as such, that's what that means. Human creativity can never be replicated in the same way in a machine because it's once again a human trait. So don't think of it like that. Think of it as how are they modeling the generation of new ideas contextually such that it could be useful as a tool for humans. That's what Google's doing. That's all. Next question.
Great. Thanks for that, Jonathan.
Ghost, how are you? Do you have a question for Jonathan?
I'm doing well. How's it going, everybody?
Ghost.
Thank you for letting me up here. So I'm actually a diagnostic and interventional radiologist in real life. AI is going to be taking over diagnostic radiology. I think that's going to be the first specialty to go. The second one's probably going to be pathology. This image recognition algorithms are crazy. If I can feed this AI a billion biopsy proven, a large data set with a bunch of biopsy proven diagnoses that that I found on imaging, those are true positives, and this thing's it's just gonna do better than humans. I mean, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. I really agree with what Jonathan was saying in terms of data funneling. I think a lot of these large institutions are hoarding a lot of this biopsy proven data, right? So I think it's kind of important just to understand exactly like where all this medical data and image recognition is going to be coming from. So as a diagnostic radiologist, let's say I see an MRI and I see something in the pancreas and it has imaging features typical of pancreatic cancer, right? The only way I'm really going to know it's pancreatic cancer is by the gastroenterologist going in there endoscopically and getting a tissue diagnosis, right? And the pathologist is going to look at the slides under a microscope and he's going to say, this is pancreatic cancer. You were right, right? So that's a true positive right there. Like, how many of those data sets do you think these massive institutions have? I've done a lot of biopsies. I've done 600, 700 in my life, right? They have massive amounts of these data sets. And I think it's really important that all this data gets pulled into a universal data pool that everyone can access. Right now, when I want a patient's imaging that was done at a prior hospital, I have to call the hospital and they get sent on CDs right now. It's ridiculous. There needs to be an easier way to transfer the data, and it's got to be through a universalized data pool that everyone's using.
Oh my God. Yes.
The other thing is this, man. This single data pool, it's got to have equity proportional to the contribution that you give it, right? So it ensures better AI training and it keeps monetary incentives aligned, right? You're training the AI by giving it more data, and by giving it more data, you have more equity. So you're still maintaining a capitalistic environment where there's competition, but now the competition is for contributing data, right? That's how the companies are going to get more money. So they need to tokenize this data, right? Keep it in one big data pool, and your equity share is proportional to the amount of data you give it and the quality of the data too, right? So instead of multiple fragmented data sets being sold individually, all biopsy proven imaging data is pulled into one decentralized repository. So this ensures high diversity of cases, which improves AI performance. They all have standardized labeling and it makes the AI training more consistent, and there's no walled gardens. So AI companies must participate fairly rather than monopolizing select data sets. So it's equity-based tokenization model. Every contributing hospital, institution, receives equity in the pool based on the quantity and quality of data contributed.
Nice.
So this equity is represented as data tokens, which can be traded, sold, or held for profit sharing. And AI companies pay to access the data pool, and revenue is distributed proportionally to token holders. So more valuable biopsy-proven data, that equals more equity, and that equals more profit. And that's got to be the future of AI. Universalized data sets, everyone can contribute, make the model better, and your equity stake in the data pool is proportional to the amount of data you give it. That's it.
That's awesome. You nailed it. You nailed it. Yeah, I mean, like the ability to the CD thing. The fact that you can't get your own data if you wanted to sell it yourself as a human being, I think is a little bit. It's not. It's not okay. Technically, it's not yours. They recorded it, but it's like your medical health care data, right? So, like the fact that one institution has to get it directly from another and they send it on a CD is very inefficient. The fact that I myself can't just use an API or have an app. I say API because if I wanted to build a startup to facilitate downloading my data, I couldn't. There's no way to do that at an institutional level. We have the same type of issue with we enforce legislation that makes Facebook offer download your whole data, right? Google redid their entire data collection system such that they show you what kind of data they're collecting and give you the ability to do a data takeout. This is enforced at the legislative level to allow people to get access to this in a programmatic way. And it makes no sense that in an industry where this data makes the most sense to be able to download to yourself to do whatever you want to do with it, whether it get a diagnosis or a first opinion, not through a provider because there's a shortage of doctors, but through an AI that's off the you could use online. It's not an actual diagnosis, but it's a first opinion. We can't that's ridiculous. And it's not just that we can't, it's that there are no using technologies online right now to build a company that would allow the facilitation of this data transfer between institutions. That's not even possible because there's no enforcement of being people have the agency to do with the data as they want, right? So even if it's I like your approach, have one route that's financially incentivized at the hospital level, right? But does that require prior signing of this is de-identified? I'm not sure how that part works. I know the de-identification pipelines exist and those tools exist, but I guess hospitals all they want to do is make money. So if they can make money off of here's the onboarding for you instead of your co-pilot BS that's gonna ruin everything. Here's a way you can monetize your data that hurts absolutely nobody. Link it up in a somewhat universal way, or expose an API endpoint that allows us to put this stuff in the cloud in a de-identified way through some pipeline that is not managed by you. I think that's a truly transformative way that we can onboard people to the system. Awesome, dude.
I think that Ghost you brought something to the table that sounds really interesting. I think to a bunch of people, I would like to do a space just dedicated to that, just because that sounds very interesting. We do have problems we have to solve, and I think we're at a time now everybody's got to take responsibility for everything. We let others take responsibility for things. It's not a good outcome. So I think it's important to do that. I have one, Jonathan, you've been super. You're a hero today. This was a long conversation, and you're really bringing it. And really can't tell you how much I really appreciate this. I don't know if I can express how much I do for your contribution today. I'm curious before we close up, and I'm going to give you the last word, unless we'll do a roundtable if anybody wants to say another word. But how does Google and Facebook connect you to your data? And even do they? Is there the place in Utah? Is there an identification number, some machine like what Google has when you used to be able to pull up for entities that readable number that is attached to an entity, and they don't, you can't get access to that anymore. Do they do that with everybody with a Gmail account and everything, or can you tell us a little bit about that for a minute, just because that's super interesting to me?
Absolutely. So you go to your Google account. Yes, if you are logged in with a Google account, it tracks the stuff that you do, I guess, right? And the stuff that it does track, you go to what is it, Google. You click on your face, my account, and you go to my data, and it'll show you all the different applications of Google that you're using and the data that is collected um, from, like, I guess those apps. So, for instance, if I go into it right now, it'll show me that I just got notifications on my phone through, like, notifications will served to me. It'll show me that I am logged into this browser, and these are the last things that I looked up in terms of browsing. Um, I guess any Google device that I've had access to, it'll show all of that. Any web searches that I put in, any AI information that's saved, that's being used, like Gemini can query your own data and previous responses. So all of that information is shown there, and it gives you an option to, like, delete it on a rotating basis, like every 90 days. I don't do that because I want AI to be able to, like, AI is useful. The more access it has to the data that you want it to be able to, like, sort through and sift through and get insights of, the better it'll be. And I mean, ultimately, if you want your personal AI to be as useful as possible, you're going to want to give it as much data to look through as possible. Like my browsing history, they have a search tool that's AI enabled that I don't have to put the URL or the title exactly in there. I can just put a word that's related to whatever was the content of that page in there, and I can search my history like that. Like, that's, if you didn't have search history and you're clearing everything all the time, I wouldn't have access to that. So, but yeah, that's where you can go find your data. You can have it exported. There's a tool called Takeout. Look up Google Takeout, and it'll let you, like, remove all the data from the platform if you want to do your own analysis on it, which is kind of cool. Same thing with Facebook. Same thing with Twitter. Only place you can't do it is in healthcare.
Interesting. Well, if anybody has a final question, please raise your hand. And if not, Jonathan, if you have any final words you would like to tell everybody how to reach you, I think your knowledge. We're not it hasn't taken over everything yet. There are so many businesses out there that aren't, there's medium-sized businesses, small businesses, enterprise businesses. It's going to take a long time for AI to get into every workflow of every business. It's going to take years. And so the idea, like certain positions, yeah, you might have a disruption, but you can transfer your knowledge to so many different scenarios that, that's the human creativity and what have you. But I think that you need to just start to look at I mean, what the freelance economy or the gig economy is kind of it's a garbage dump in the end, in terms of, like, what you were saying, that if you're a slave to the AI telling you what to do, who wants that kind of a life? But there's still, small businesses in the United States, at least, have the majority of the jobs, and who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of years. But I think there's a great number of opportunities, because it's going to take quite. I mean, I deal with clients all the time, and there's a huge reluctance to adapt to AI right now from a large segment of the population. So just because huge corporations are doing it doesn't mean that that's that's adopted by the majority of businesses out there. So I think there's a lot of opportunity over the next couple of years. So if you want,
100%.
go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say 100%. I mean, we're early. We're so early just being here, and I know that's why we're all here talking about this stuff. Like, literally nobody outside of that I know of, even, like, they're like, yeah, I used ChatGPT one time. Uh, like, okay, uh, and you're not interested. That's cool. I'm glad we're all here and interested in, like, seeing the possibilities. And I am very interested. Literally anybody, like, who wants to describe a problem they're having, or their situation, just hit me up on this app. You can go to LinkedIn, look my name up. I think my name is in the bio. That's my name. Just message me. I'm very eager to hear how these types of technologies could be applied in different industries. And no AI ethics though. No AI ethics. No like thinking and how we think. We're training models wrong or whatnot. That's not. I will not talk about that stuff. That's a speculative. I only want to talk about the facts, the research, and what tools are currently available to solve problems. So.
Excellent. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great show. I think we all have a lot to think about, and you're very concise. You're you have a lot of great experience. You're very smart, and so we're keep in touch. And if the ghost, if you want to, I don't know, not sure if he's still here, but that idea about, I mean, we got to be very creative, and the people that are people that do make. And so, you can't expect other people to grab the bull's horns. And I think now we're at a time where people need to step up and do it themselves, not expect others, leaders, whatever, thought creators to do it for them. So that's part of the reason that I love to do this space, is I think it's an incubator for those that are forward thinking, that know what they're talking about, that are doing things for us to kind of maybe try to influence how all this pans out. I mean, that's part of the human experiences that you are, especially in this day and time, and with X and these spaces, the ability for my voice to go around the world and around the globe and have all kinds of people to interact with is really a unique position, and it's a privilege and an honor, and it's something I don't take lightly. So thank you to everybody for showing up. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend. Thank you again, Jonathan, for your time and your energy and your focus. And thanks to everybody who listened and participated today. I really am honored that so many thoughtful people come to the space again and again and again. And we have a crew that keep on showing up. So thank you to everybody. Have an amazing weekend. To go look at the sun. I sometimes in the morning, if the sun, right when the sun comes up over the horizon, you can actually gaze into the sun, and thank the sun for doing its work, because without the sun, it would be a very cold existence indeed. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. Have a great Friday, and much love to everybody. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Love y'all.
Thank you.